is going to be your Clash Royale champion. Takes it. Sergio Ramos wins.
Huge. And nothing to stop the Hog Rider. It's going to get swing on the tombstone. That's it.
Nobody's the first ever CRL World Champions.
And there you have it. The fire goes up. It's a golden this time. 293. That's it. They're doing it. Team Liquid is going to be your CRL champion.
Team Liquid is done and searching the goal.
117 HP remaining. EQ trying to make room. Team Queso completes the reverse sweep, and they are your 2020 Clash Royale League World Champions.
We are deep into summer and things are heating up all around the world. You're sweating like crazy, drinking something cold, and I'll tell you right now, things are heating up here in the arena as well because the top 4 players in Clash Royale League are here for the monthly final to go up against 4 notorious newcomers. Andrew, today's going to be a barn burner to accompany the summer heat.
It's so good to be back as we careen into that last chance qualifier. As we get closer and closer to World Finals, we are going to see more and more repeat champions come back and players that are fighting for their lives to make a name for themselves here at CRL, the biggest league when it comes to Clash Royale. And before we get into the action today, Rich, let's do something really quickly and look at the journey so far.
Clash Royale League 2021 is here, and this year, it's every player for themselves in an all-out free-for-all duel for the throne. It all begins with the Trophy Race, a monthly event where everyone, and we mean everyone, faces off and battles their way to the top of the monthly leaderboard. Millions of players will compete, but only the top 1,000 move on to the monthly qualifiers. The 8 competitors that conquer the competition advance to the monthly finals, where the only thing left to do is prove that you're the best of the best. The winner goes home with a royal amount of cash prizes and competitive points. After 8 rounds of non-stop Clash Royale action, the top 24 players from the competitive leaderboard will automatically qualify for the World Finals. Fell just short of making it? Don't worry, it's not over yet. The top remaining players on the leaderboard who just missed out on qualifying will be invited to a last chance qualifier for a shot at 8 remaining World Final spots. In the end, the finalists will duke it out for their share of the prize pool. Clash Royale League 2021 will determine who's got what it takes to sit on the throne and reign as the world champion.
With every monthly final and every new monthly champion, the pressure builds towards that world championship, and 2 players or 2 longtime members of the community who are used to that sort of pressure, of course. AC and Eric Benamou, world champion coach, multiple Western time champion in Crap, Joshua Sharon. Guys, glad to have you as part of the broadcast team.
I'm glad to be here, man. I'm so excited for the Cycle Masterclass that we're about to get this month.
Yeah, love this. I can't wait to cast some games, and I'm just excited. This is going to be one of the best ones yet.
We'll definitely be seeing both of you throughout the day. It's great having this wonderful 4-man team with my buddy Andrew as well for what's going to be a killer monthly final. Of course, we'll be seeing both of you later, but let's go ahead right now, Andrew, and jump into the breakdown of what we'll be seeing today throughout CRL.
That's right. See you boys later. Great seeing you. Great having you here on the desk with us, or in the virtual desk, as they say. And before we get to move forward to the very first match of the day, like you were just saying, Rich, let's do a check-in with what we've done so far. And the first part of that is the CRL 2021 format, the dual format and our tournament structure. It's very, very important that you know exactly what we're doing, because duels is brand new to 2021, even though I'm sure you guys have become very familiar with it. Each player has to bring 4 decks to the competition. Those decks must consist of 32 unique cards, no repeats, my friends. Each deck can only be played once per match, and the players must win the best of 3. That's right, we're still doing BO3s. The first person to that 2 victories will take that said set.
You talk about 2 victories, Andrew, but just as important in this format is 2 losses because we are in double elimination for this bracket. Every single player has 2 lives to give. You lose twice, you are out. So right now, everyone clean and clear and under control. And if you can't stay in that winner's bracket, you will drop down to the lower bracket. So you want to win your way through to that championship. Of course, if you do drop down, you get that second chance. It's going to be a fun bracket, Andrew. Of course, you see our top 4 players ranked in CRL, all matched up with our newcomers.
Yeah, you get the home team there, repping the blue, Mo Light, Viper, Lucas, and Samuel, who have been here many, many times before. Viper being here 3 times in a row. Maybe it'll be his month, but Minimao, Reichert, Agony King, and Sato could have something to say about that. But when you look at our distribution of the cash, when you look at the leaderboard, there's a few names that really stand out. A lot of money has been won by the group that we're seeing today, including, of course, Mo Light and Lucas, who have both walked away with over $20,000 in one said month this season.
Yeah, monthly final money, no joke, $1.6 million overall on the line this season. But those leaderboard points at this point might be more important than that individual piece of cash because they are taking you all the way towards that world championship and that huge grand prize. And let's talk about this, Andrew. It's getting a bit tighter here at the top. Mohamed Light was way ahead of everybody, but Lucas now with a couple of great performances right on his heels. And you see there rounding up that top 4, Viper and Samuel Basotto, both in the mix as well.
Yeah, it's incredible to look at all the names that we're seeing here and some that we haven't even seen at the monthly finals yet. People that are working every single month to get those leaderboard points, even if they're not able to take home a monthly finals victory. And that's a big part of what was so cool about that video at the top of the show. Literally millions of Clash Royale players are fighting to become the top 8 every single month just to get a chance to become that #1 player. And speaking of #1 players, it does feel like Mo Light is the #1 player in the world. You look at the leaderboard, you look at the accolades, and you look at the run that he's been on this season.
Yeah, Mo really so far is the player of 2021, but of course, there are ways for you to play. Not only is CRL 2021 open to everyone, and that means you, yes, you watching right now, you can participate today by voting in our various matches of the day. We're starting things off, of course, with Mo in a minute, but our match of the day to vote is going to be Viper versus the German Reichert. So go ahead, vote in the chat, hashtag Viper, that's 2 eyes, by the way, hashtag Reichert, and go ahead and try to slide in and see who you might think be the victor in that matchup. And it's going to be a very good one, the 4 and 5 seed. Andrew, every single storyline today is so much fun. I cannot wait to jump in the casting booth with you.
I'm so glad that you say that, but unfortunately, Rich, I'm going to have to say goodbye to you for now. Maybe you can go get a vote in on former teammates Viper and Reichert as I welcome my good friend, my co-caster, our former world champion head coach, Eric Benamou, EB7. What is up, my brother? How you doing today? And talk to me about this very first matchup.
I am doing great first off, and I am so excited for this month. Like I said earlier, this is going to be a master class of cycle decks. The top 4 players in the world right now, leaderboard wise and probably gameplay wise, are all cycle players, and I think Mo Light is leading that front right now, and he's going up against Minimao, who has this big advantage here in no one really knowing exactly what he's going to come out with.
Yeah, Minimao, maybe you can tell the players at home a little bit more about him, but he is our current 8 seed going up against the #1 player in the world. You can see Mo Light bottom of your screen, Minimao at the top. And just to remind you all at home, Goblin Drill will not be active for this month's monthly finals. The card was not available for the entirety of the month. So next month in September, that will be, or August, excuse me, I promise you, I know what a calendar looks like. That will be the first time that we ever see that Goblin Drill in competition.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be a game changer. It's been that on ladder, and I'm really excited to see how players adapt to that. But to start off here, Mao coming at him with a quick cycle miner deck is very risky because you expect that out of Mo, right? And to go and possibly go into a mirror match of that, that is a risky move, but it shows he has confidence in himself, and I really like it.
Yeah, Mo on the other side of it going a little bit heavier, maybe a little bit more untraditional with what looks like versions of P.E.K.K.A bridge spam, or, you know, I mean, yeah, it's going to look like probably something like that. P.E.K.K.A being a lot more popular in the meta as of late because of all the Hog Rider decks, all of the Electro Giant decks out there, and of course, Royal Giant coming back into the meta.
Yeah, and even right now, Mo just understanding the cycles so well, this is going to be really tough for Mao, not because he doesn't have answers, right? You have the delivery, you have the Tesla, you have everything everything you truly need. But at the end of the day, you know Mo is only gonna go in when he sees the right opportunity. And I want to see if Mao can keep up with that, not only the cycle, but understanding where the match is at.
Mini Mao has been playing since the inception of Clash Royale, and you know, he's always been a big fan of minor cycle. It's always tough though. At this level, Eric, minor cycle is very, very unforgiving. You miss one defense and you're found playing catch up for the rest of at least that one said game, which can be really difficult to do as you get into double and triple elixir against the best players in the world. I definitely feel like Mo's deck gives him an advantage as we move through this game.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to go in triple elixir in this matchup. You know he's going to overwhelm you, especially with these P.E.K.K.A.s in the back. Very, very smart play out of him here. He knows he has enough for this push, and that's what I'm talking about with Mo. This is what makes him so good. He only plays that P.E.K.K.A. in the back, understanding that Dark Prince is in his hand and he could defend anything that's coming at him, right? Whether it's Spear Goblins, Minor, anything. He's so smart with everything, and now it's going to be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, Magic Archer going to pull up high to try to take those Teslas off the board, though. That nice cycle gets another Tesla down, takes the Ram Rider out of play, but that is a very healthy Inferno Dragon that Mini Mao is having to pay a lot of attention to. Magic Archer getting a ton of value, and there is a Minor. Does get on the Magic Archer, but now you see less offense going to be coming down the lane, at least for this one cycle of Mini Mao's.
Wow, and that bar barrel was actually beautiful to make sure that that Prince does not only does it not charge, but the shield gets taken out as well. And I really like the defenses out of Mao, though. I'm going to be honest, the pressure is beautiful from Mo to keep him on his back foot, but Mao is playing this like he's here every month.
Yeah, Mao's doing this really, really well, staying ahead of the cycle, and Mo able to get another Minor back down. Mo hasn't been using his Electro Wizards to pick up the Minors. Do you think we'll start to see that to mitigate more damage as this game moves forward?
I definitely do hope so. That's a really, really great point that you because at the end of the day, that is what mitigates the full damage, but I also understand him not using it just yet, right? Once it gets really close down to the end, he's going to use it just because there is Rocket in the other deck, so you cannot allow too much damage, but if you use it too early on, you get no utility out of it.
Magic Archer sneaks in front of the Dark Prince there, a little bit of odd targeting, then slides behind with the log, and now has an incredible lock on tower, 1123 to 835. That Magic Archer narrows the gap by quite a bit, and now we see the Electro Wizard come down. No time to get that rocket off though yet.
Yeah, and he has to be very careful with the rockets here. This is what I want to see out of Mao. How do you handle this late game situation where you know that if you rocket and he goes all in on triple elixir, there is no way you're stopping it. So it's a very, very thin, fine line on when you can actually go in.
That Minor was absolutely phenomenal. It turns the P.E.K.K.A. all the way around, which then allows the Ram Rider to get targeted by that Princess Tower. I don't know if that's what Mini Mao was trying to do, and it took the Magic Archer off of the board, really messing up Mo's offense here, but still a ton of pressure coming in from the Egyptian, from the former monthly champion, Mohamed Light.
Yeah, the only problem here is he cannot catch a Minor if he did Minor offensively, just because he did have to use that E-Wiz to protect the Magic Archer. But this pressure from Mo is absolutely insane.
That Archer's on tower. That is gonna do it. That is gonna do it, Eric. The Magic Archer lines up for 4 big shots at the end, and Mo can't believe he just got away with that.
This is like, Mao, welcome to playing against Mo Light. You have it under control the whole time. You think it's set. You have Rocket in your pocket. You have whatever you need. Yeah, the defenses are perfect. One Magic Archer, 5 seconds left, gives him the match. And it's Mo being Mo, man.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It is Mo being Mo. You never know where the game is going to go until that clock actually hits 0. And a great game played by Mini Mao. We see here, you know, getting that rocket damage in. Miners were coming in hot and heavy. No Electro Wizards there. You see the Spear Goblin come in here, so he has to over defend with the Electro. This is the Miner that actually turns the things around. Oh, excuse me, I think this is actually a different Miner, but that was the idea. This is the Miner that lines things up at the end. Incredible stuff there. The delivery helps him out. Not enough time. 4 seconds for that rocket to go from King Tower to opponent's tower. Not enough time. Mohamed Light starts off, I guess, kind of clean in game number 1.
Yeah, it was clean. He did what he had to do. It wasn't as convincing, right? The win wasn't as like we're used to, where he has control throughout the match. But you're not always gonna have that. And for Mo to stay calm and still win it shows a lot out of him. We're used to seeing a different gameplay from him. And the only bad news I have here for Mao is he didn't use any of his strong cards just yet. He still has his comfort decks all available to him, and he has a win on the board. So Mo is looking really strong to start off this set.
You know, it's very, very tough for the 8 seed to unseat the 1 seed. I believe it's only happened once before, or maybe last month was the second time we got it. I'll have to check the numbers on that in just a moment. But the composure that Mohamed Light had throughout that entire game, Minimao now not able to play his favorite card in the game, which is the Miner, and all the cards that go along with that. If that's the best you got, and Mo's playing something a little heavier, that might make you feel a little nervous about game number 2, which is exactly where we're at. Obviously, if Mo picks us up, we'll move on to our second match of the day, which is the match of the day so far between Riker and Viper, former LA Gaming teammates. But first, let's finish things up here with Minimao and Mohamed Light.
Yeah, and if you told me this was month 1, I would tell you there's absolutely no way Mao wins. But after seeing Ta, you know, not only upset the number 1 seed, but win it all, I'm no longer a doubter of 8 seeds, man. It just can't be me.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make about Todd. Thank you for reminding me of the greatness that we saw just a few months ago. Graveyard in early. That is a lot of elixir spent. Mohamed Light going to activate King Tower. And a late delivery here on the right-hand side. Going to take a boatload of damage. Tower just barely above 1,000 HP. Mega Knight out of play. And if you look, the elixir, I guess, a little bit in favor of Mo because of what he has on the board, but a great start for Minimao.
It's a beautiful start. The only thing that Mao has to be careful now is with King Tower activated, it's going to be really tough to get any sort of damage onto that tower if Mo can get his cycle straight. I think the problem here was the fact that he didn't have the cycle he wanted. The Knight was not ready for the Mega Knight. Now I suppose he'll either have Cannon Cart or Knight at all times for that push, and then having that King Tower activated just allows for cheaper defenses and a lot easier to avoid any sort of damage. And we got our first Mortar Lock.
That's right, Mortar Lock on that left-hand side. Spear Goblins take this Baby Dragon off the board to create just a little bit of pressure. Cannon Cart going to bait out that Night Witch on the right-hand side. Mohamed Light in control of the cycle now, but still behind by a good amount of damage. But like you said, Eric, I think it's going to be very difficult for Mao to get on tower once again with a Graveyard that is that effective. And maybe he's just going to go for poison value to end this game.
Yeah, that's what he should do. I don't like the snowball just in the sense that now you have nothing for the Spear Goblins, right? And there they are. They're going to get a ton of value onto that Baby Dragon. He protects it with the Knight as well. And those are the type of things that you have to be very careful of when you're playing against, I think, everyone this month, right? Lucas, Samuel, Viper, all of them are going to take extreme advantage of those 2 elixir, 1 elixir cards.
That's a really, really solid point that you make. It's something that all the competitors are going to have to think about. A poison to nothing there on the right-hand side. Now feeling confident where he's at elixir-wise. But I could not agree with you more. Taking those 1 and 2 elixir cards off the board is going to be a lot more difficult than it seems in this game. Mega Knight going to turn so that, that Musketeer is going to stay on the board and stay away from the Mega Knight and be able to get some damage in. Knight to come down to protect. Yes, there he is.
Yeah, and that could not have worked out any better for Mo. I'm not sure it's always planned, right? Like interactions like that was just a split second where the Hog took it to his attention, but it worked out so well for him. The Musketeer got so much value and forced out defenses a lot sooner than he wanted, and still holding on, but it's getting closer every single time.
When you're such veterans or such masters, as you were saying earlier, with decks that cycle that quickly, they are so quick with those heads-up plays because they're so used to having to react that rapidly. It is such an impressive thing when you watch guys like Sam, like Lucas, and like Mo adapt to the game with those cards to keep them on the board and turn around opponents' defenses like you saw there. So here we go. Musketeer back down on the left-hand side. Knight on the right. Only 585 remaining. Can Mo survive this, Eric?
Yeah, I think right now Mao is in a really good position, and I want to point something out that he did that I really, really liked, that we don't see a lot out of the rookie players. You saw that poison come in on the left-hand side on the Musketeer and the Spear Goblins when you know that most players would have wanted to poison the tower on the right and get that damage. He made sure that he was not going to take extra damage. He's not forcing this win, and that's the way he'll be able to hold on.
That's right, he's ahead by over 600 HP there, and there is one more of those very safe poisons protecting this brawler plus bats, getting the mortar off the board while still has a good amount of pressure on the right-hand side. Cannon cart plus Knight is there, and now we see a big amount of pressure here coming in from Mohamed Light with those Hoggies plus Fireball push, but Mao still in control with 10 seconds left. And honestly, Eric, if it wasn't for that Magic Archer at the end, we might be seeing a 2-0 from Mao, who is playing incredibly clean Clash Royale through the first 2 games, even though we are 1-1.
I am so impressed with this gameplay, and yes, 5 seconds, 4 Magic Archer hits are the reason he did not just 2-0 the #1 player in the world. And when I say #1 player in the world, I don't just talk about leaderboards. He is #1, I think, in everyone's heart and everyone's mind. And Mao is really impressive today.
Yeah, Mohamed Light has been a part of the community for so long, but it does feel like 2021 has been his golden year. The golden chaired golden boy, as we like to call him, has had a great 2021, but running into a very formidable opponent in Mini Mao, who has just been unstoppable. When you talk about understanding the control of the game, like you said, 5 seconds, 1 Magic Archer is the reason why we don't see a 2-0 here. What do we need to see in game 3 for Mohamed Light to look just a little bit more in control, Eric?
What I really want to see out of him is give us something different, right? I want we've commended him so much, and Julesy as well, his analyst, for being so strong in deck picks. But I think at this point, when you play a rookie, he's looking for your comfort decks. That's the only thing he can really cling on to. So I want to see surprise. Maybe throw out a golem, throw out lava, come at us with something different. You don't have Mega Knight, so the lava does have a better shot at not getting that counter push. There is he already played the cycle deck with the Tesla, so none of that is available either. Show something different, catch him off guard, and then let your gameplay speak.
I would love to see something heavy from Mohamed Light. You know, poison's out, rockets out, recruits are out. Maybe we should go to the skies with lava. Maybe we're able to play a golem clone deck. As bad as that might be, a lot of the answers for Mao are out of, you know, his arsenal, and it's so out of character for Mo to play something like that. I'd love to see exactly what you're talking about. And then Mao on the other side of it, Eric, obviously we're a little bit less familiar with him. What does he need to do to continue controlling these games as he has game 1 and game 2 with that 5-second blunder in game 1?
At this point, if I'm Mao, I'm just making sure I am not beat by wall breakers and I am not beat by miner. Everything else, you're gonna have to beat me with a deck that you're not comfortable with. But game 3, there is no way that you could come into this last game and not be prepared for that. So just make sure that you're covered on that end. You know it's most comfort deck. You know he beats counters with it. So do what you can to make sure that that is not what's gonna beat you. And if you lose with a tough matchup against Golem or Lava, odds are you weren't gonna be able to predict that anyway, so it won't hurt as much.
And either way, we will see more of Mao or Mo. That's Mini Mao or Mohamed Light this weekend. It is double elimination. But right now, the Bolivian going up against the golden-chaired golden boy from Egypt, Mohamed Light. Bottom of your screen, our former monthly finals champion, the leaderboard champion, going up against the 8 seed, who is really giving him a run for his money.
Yeah, and it looks like Mo is not going miner cycle with this mega minion coming down, and on top of that, him waiting. I do like it. I like this start, but at the end of the day, it could still be a miner cycle, and he just didn't have the cycle that he wanted. So let's just wait and see what happens.
Mega Minion plus Goblin Cage, still a handful of options out there. We see these with Graveyard, though, and now that we see Mega Knight come down here, Eric, do you think that's what we might see out of Mohamed Light?
It definitely can be, because the 2 Mega Knight decks that are the strongest right now are Mega Knight Graveyard and Mega Knight Hoggies, and he just used those Hoggies. Mother Witch comes out as well, and that is the only thing I was about to say that I don't love about the Mother Witch in this matchup. The only spell that Mao had left was Fireball, so you know that's going to get Fireballed every single time.
That's a really, really solid point that you make there. Mother Witch, obviously the biggest counter to her and Magic Archer is that Fireball. It's just an easy 10 out of 10 times you're going to pull the trigger when you see that Mother Witch come out, knowing that Fireball was still available. Maybe a card that he would have shied away from, but we'll see if he's able to get that monstrous value that you can get from that Mother Witch. Now that we see the double witch combo, Mother and Ignite, we have to be thinking that we will see Graveyard here. And there you go, Mother Witch of Mao's own to get a couple piggies on the board.
And I really like the double witch aspect of it. I didn't love it at first when I saw only the Mother Witch. I thought it was just gonna get fireballed way too many times, and having both witches is very good, but you cannot play them together. Mo knows that. We know that. I mean, I'm not gonna question his ability to know that, but I'm gonna give the most props here to Mao. I said early on, your advantage is no one really knowing what you're gonna play, and look at the deck type that he's playing. No one could have predicted that.
Yeah, the only thing that you maybe would have thought was definitely going to come down the barrel, Eric, would have been the minor cycle deck that we saw in game 1. So he goes comfort early on, maybe thinking that opponents wouldn't think that he would be maybe that gameable. It ends up not working out in his favor, but here we go. Like you're talking about, very off meta, or at least different decks than what we always are seeing on ladder or in the current meta. And just to go back to a moment ago when you were talking about Muhammad Light, unhappy about playing those witches together, you could see the dissatisfaction on his face with making those plays. He's been stacking up his troops quite a bit today, kind of uncharacteristically.
Yeah, he has, and I think he's a little bit frustrated, right? I saw it once or twice in his head, in his face, that he was a little bit frustrated with the pushes and just the overall defenses, and it has to come down to that spell, right? He has nothing to really get all those troops that are getting bunched off the board, and on top of that, the Mother Witch not really doing anything in this type of matchup. It doesn't give you the DPS that you want, and on the other hand, Mao is getting so much value onto those bats from the Night Witch.
Yeah, Mao, this deck right now just giving Mo a lot of trouble. There's the Mother Witch up high to get bats. Exactly like you said, from the Night Witch. Damage in the giant skeleton has been so strong. And there you see that look once again from Muhammad Light. He knows that even if this push makes it, that giant skeleton's going to clear everything off the board. So what is Mao able to do? Just double down, get more offense off the board. And right now, it feels almost impossible for Muhammad Light to get a graveyard into play.
And I think he's going to go all in here. He's going on this left-hand side, but he still needs to be very careful. There is an RG coming down. You do not have Cage in cycle either. Where's your DPS going to come from? It's definitely not going to come from the Mother Witch, and even less if it gets pulled by the Fisherman. And Mao just has to hold on at this point. You don't have to make extravagant plays.
And I think we're going to see it once again, Eric. I think we're going to see the 8 dethrone the 1 in this incredible opening set to our 6th CRL monthly final. Muhammad Light fighting for his life, and there is the first graveyard. That Mega Knight does have aggro, but there's a Mother Witch in the back. Yeah,
it just doesn't matter with that Mother Witch. Even if the Mother Witch was taken out, as long as it spawns enough Hoggies, that is in itself is a defense for all the Skellies. They get distracted, and here on the right, it's just not enough. There's not enough answers coming out of him, and Mao won not only the gameplay battle in this specific match, but he won the analysis, which in duels format, we've seen over months become more and more important.
And here we go, the final seconds ticking down. Mao able to hang on. All 3 games, we saw Mao go up early and then hang on to his lead and just either over defend or slowly spell cycle his way out. It was just one errant miner that retargeted a magic archer onto a tower that then made it so that Mao could not get a rocket out in time. And that looked like, okay, that's the typical Muhammad Light that we're used to seeing here. He's hanging on, he's hanging on, he's hanging on, and then he gives you that big uppercut at the end to knock you out. But look at Mini Mao from Bolivia, Eric. What a showing in his very first debut, or that's a little redundant, but in his first CRL monthly final.
Yeah, and Ota, you taught us so much. Never underestimate the 8th seed. You can always come back with the right decks, with the right gameplay, and really just props to Mao. It's so hard, not only coming in as the 8th seed, but going in against someone like Molite, who's so smart in game. He's so good, and on top of that has one of the best analysts with him, right? So everything was stacked against him, and he looked so comfortable. He looked like he's been playing in CRL forever.
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought that up, man. When you were looking at Mao, it looked like he had just ice running through his veins. Obviously, he's been around for a very long time playing the game, but not at this level. And to see him come through like he did today, just an exceptional showing from this young man. And when you talk about these decks, Eric, deck number 1 matching up on both sides here. Minimao honestly looked like he was going to take the game, but it was all about the 8th card there from Mohamed Light.
Yeah, and Mao played this perfectly. Like I said, we all knew he was going to get overwhelmed in that triple elixir, and it came down to just one royal delivery being placed in front of that magic archer at the end. But I'm not going to take anything away from Mao in this matchup. He minored when he had to. He didn't get overzealous and try to finish that game with rockets. He knew what he had to do, just a tiny miscalculation in the last 5 seconds, which is normal, right? You're a rookie, it's your first game, and just most sees things because he's so much more calm, right? He's been here so many times, so he sees those tiny things at the end a little bit more. But Mao could have definitely been 3-0 here.
You talk about the calm from Mini Mao. It was all aggression from him early on in game number 2. We had Mo go with maybe a little bit of a hyper aggressive start, that being coupled with a bit of an odd cycle. It made it really difficult for him to catch back up after that very initial graveyard came in from Mini Mao. Ton of damage in on the tower. I believe he was just a hair above 1,000 HP after the first maybe 30 seconds, which was the very first real exchange between the two, and it was all kind of downhill from there. Mohamed Light was able to put stuff together at the very end, but just not enough to recover. And then when you go to game 3, basically the same thing, a bit of a chess game early on, and then you saw Mao able to capitalize on troops being stacked up, and then of course that royal giant coming in behind the giant skeleton.
And I absolutely love this deck choice because it also beats the miners and the wall breakers, right? You have fishermen and you have Ewiz to catch those miners if you want. You have the barb barrel and the fire spirit for wall breakers, for spear goblins, for whatever you want. This was so smart, and to add that giant skelly in just to make sure that he can continue to keep control of these matches. At the end of the day, that giant skelly works as a control on defense. You know that worst case scenario, you drop that down and it's going to be okay, and that was such a smart deck choice.
So first it was Ta, then it was Tico, and now it's Mini Mao. 8 seed taking out that number 1 seed. And talking about number 1 seeds, that's exactly where we're going to. The number 1 seed of last month, Viper, going up against Reichert here for our second match today. The match of the day. The winner of that set will go on to play against Mini Mao, who we just saw do some incredible stuff against our former monthly finals champion. And obviously we are waiting for the votes to come in. Eric, really quickly, who do you think is going to take this? Do you think it's going to be Viper? Do you think it's going to be Reichert, our former LA Gaming teammates?
I'm going Viper on this. It feels like CRL is home for him at this point. I think he is one of the most dominant, less talked about players that there is in all of Clash Royale right now. He'll get top 5 consistent on ladder, and then he'll come here 3 months straight and be in the top 8, and we're still not really talking about him. I think it's time to give him that respect, and I will predict that he's not only going to win this, but I want to see a dominant showing out of him. And Viper, show me the deck one time, please.
I'm going with Viper as well. Of course, the Hog Exe NATO Master, which is exactly the deck that you are referring to. And it's both of us going for Viper. We'll see what you guys at home are saying with hashtag Viper or hashtag Reichert, of course. And, you know, Viper now making it to his 3rd consecutive monthly final in a row. It does feel like it might be his time to shine. Him and Samuel Basodo, 2 of the best players in the world, yet to win a monthly finals championship to take home that $20,000. Obviously, they're taking home a good amount of money and a good amount of points. But here we go. Who will win? Bottom of our screen, 72% are on board with you and myself, my friend, and of course Reichert, the official underdog based off of us and of course you guys watching either on YouTube or on Twitch. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Reichert, we know that name very, very well. He's been around for a very long time. It's his first monthly finals. Tell me about the German just a little bit.
First off, just for people that don't know, this is the guy that will compete with Morden to get that top seed, in my opinion, out of Germany. Every month he gets a lot better. He is one of those players that is so driven, right? You'll always see him practicing. He wants to be that next level player, and I think we're gonna see that today. You're gonna see a lot of great matchups, in my opinion, from him. He's very analytical, but on the other end, Viper showing us what we expect out of him, right? Not too many surprises.
Yes, dude. I'm so excited to see him playing Hog Rider. It looks like he's going with the cycle deck, maybe Earthquake cycle with Hog, Firecracker. This is a very, very strong deck in the meta right now. Obviously, the Spirit can be swapped out. You can swap that for any of the spirits that you choose, though Ice Spirit does seem to be the most popular at the highest level. And obviously, both of these gentlemen from Europe, Viper from France, you can see there with the red, white, and blue flag. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, and as you kind of hit home, Reichert from Germany. We'll see who is going to come out on top in our second match, the match of the day. 28% of you thinking Reichert can take this home. The rest of you, the other 72, going with the Frenchman, Viper.
Yeah, and here in this type of matchup, even though you do have a lot of answers, I want to see Reichert also use that Ram Rider defensively onto that Hog. You don't always have to go the heavy defensive options. You can use that Ram Rider to stop it completely, 100% stop, and then force a counter push as well. So I want to see that type of play, and I think that's something a lot of players miss when they use this type of deck, and here it is. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yes, this is exactly what you want to see early on here, but going to need a lot of damage to come in on top of that Hog Rider as the Valkyrie is tanking. Ram Rider going to connect at the bottom of the screen to get some great damage in. Hog Rider doing the same at the top, and you talk about a good counter push. Here we go. Dark Prince plus Barb coming down the lane, but that Log getting a little bit more chip damage in. Hog Rider back down, and there is the P.E.K.K.A.
Yeah, and that Ice Spirit just getting in time. Yeah, and that's why he's so good with this type of deck. He knew exactly the defense that was going to come down. He timed that perfectly, and just that one hit is enough. Oh, that Log.
So, I mean, you know, the Log does push the P.E.K.K.A. forward, but Viper just trying to get damage where and when he can. You see the Earthquake cycle low, so Log does connect up high. But now, no Log in cycle unless he can get all the way back around to deal with, of course, this Ram Rider. Nice pickup on the Ice Spirit there. That's trouble, and now you see the Ram Rider coming to the tower. Reichert doesn't get a connection, even with all of that going his way. Inferno, though, gets a little bit of sizzle.
And what I really like here out of Viper is using those defensive Earthquakes. He knows that as time goes by, his cycle is so quick that he doesn't need to win it right now. He's had to use Earthquake 3 times now, I think, defensively. And yeah, that probably would have been match over, but I don't think he would have been able to hold on without it.
I could not agree with you more. And a big part of that is taking those magic archers off the board. You have to use the spells together, and right now you see that magic archer played in the same spot. I think it got a little bit of chip damage there. Maybe a high Valkyrie going to come in. There she is, but having to deal with that Ram Rider, there comes a Tesla. And while Reichert is ahead in Elixir, and you see the aggression coming out of him, he knows the spell cycle race is in favor of Viper.
That's why he's pressuring as much as he is, and that's a beautiful poison there as well. The only way he can avoid to get spell cycle, then look at the magic archer.
I love the aggression there, 216.
That's game over. Yeah.
And then he calls good game. He knows he overspent. He didn't get enough out of it. A brilliant, aggressive play, but you can see there a smile on his face going, man, I did exactly what Vinny Mao did not, which was I did not play patient in those final moments. I didn't reach for the victory. I let it come to me, and that's maybe something that Reichert needs to learn from what Minnie Mao did in their first matchup of the day.
Yeah, and it all came down to the little things, in my opinion. Like you said, that Log that did push the P.E.K.K.A., he was able to defend it because he had Skellies, and then the Ice Spirit play out of Viper was probably the best thing he did all game long. He caught 2 last-minute Ram Riders with it just to buy him enough time to get those Teslas out, and then that play right there with the timing onto the P.E.K.K.A. was beautiful. And we all know what happens when that tower goes below 1,000 and you have Earthquake cycle.
Yeah, and the other thing that was so great about that last interaction, Eric, was that Ice Spirit also made it so the Firecracker was able to get 2 splash shots on the tower. And there you go. Reichert recognizes immediately the mistake that he made. And Viper, it looked like he was kind of hanging on for dear life there for a moment, but kind of in very traditional Viper play style, very calm on his face and able to come back in the final moments. Good stuff out of him early on. Very happy to see at least a little bit of Hog Rider from him. I didn't think we were going to see Hog XE NATO at CRL. We haven't seen it from him really so far. And I think there's probably a reason why he does it on ladder as opposed to here playing against the best in the world. But that deck right there, that's the best Hog Rider deck in the game.
Yeah, and I still have faith, man. We still have 2 more months left of qualifiers. At this rate, Vipers should be in all of them. Just give it to me one time, man. That's all I ask. Once you secure, maybe get a first place, get the 20 grand in your pocket, secure that top 3 seeding, and then bring it out. No, but all jokes aside, yeah, that is the absolute best Hog Rider deck, and I understand 100% why he's using it.
So here we go. Miner out early from Riker. He was there to mitigate 100% of that damage. Bomber on the other side. You know, Bomber very popular in the meta right now because of all the drills, though drill not able to be played today. So we'll see exactly what Viper wants to do with that as this mortar connects on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing about it right now. You're playing a completely different meta on ladder, so that might actually end up affecting a little bit more of the ladder players like we have today in Agony King and Viper. Mo, Lucas, and Sam are all ladder players as well, but they mainly focus on competitive, so it's a little bit different. And I want to see how the ladder players really adapt to this.
You see a tilt of the head there from Riker, maybe wondering what on earth he's running into right now. And so far, working out well. There's the graveyard coming in. Snowball not in cycle to get on those spear goblins.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Snowball isn't available, but the good thing for Viper is he knows that he has it, and it's all about getting one good push, because when you look at the things up top, if you can just get the right push going, you might actually be able to take tower in one big, maybe obviously more than 10 elixir push, but it's gonna cost a lot. You just have to get the rotation you want.
Yeah, as of right now, though, Riker in firm control of game number 2, 1294 there on that tower, bottom right tower of Vipers. Couple mortar locks coming in, a little bit of minor chip damage there, and some tough defenses coming in from Viper. Maybe now he's able to fix his cycle, and then we'll see if he wants to get aggressive here as we tick in to double elixir.
Yeah, and I think he should get aggressive here. There is no kite gonna be able to come out of an ice golem. He's gonna take a lot of damage here on the left. No, there is the snowball, but that's actually really good for him in the sense that the spear goblins are no longer available for the graveyard now. The snowball is out of cycle, but again, just I don't know how he's cycling so quickly to everything, and just this is frustrating for Viper.
Yeah, incredibly frustrating for Viper. You see having to use the snowball on defense, so spear goblins get a little bit more value up high there at the river, and then, you know, this cycle, like you said, in complete control. There's some more spear goblins on the board, which is going to slow down this Mama Pekka. Nightwitch getting in front of the Pekka. A bit unfortunate interaction there on the right-hand side as Viper is having to spend an arm and a leg here on his side of the map just to stay alive.
Yeah, he definitely is, and the kiting has been working so well for him. And then the arrows and the snowball are a lot of value here, but look at that. He creates pushes. You think you have to worry about the top side, like, okay, this is the Viper push, and then you look at the towers on the bottom and they keep getting lower and lower, while at the top, there's no real danger.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Riker needs to hold on to. He needs to understand that he needs to do nothing special, nothing crazy. A little bit of pressure here I like with the mortar so that we can't have Viper build this gigantic downhill push like we were talking about earlier on in this game. I think he's doing all things correctly, and he can just kind of hang out now for another 90 seconds with minor chip damage. There you go, minor to the back of the tower.
Yeah.
Nothing there. Nightwitch going to come down, overspend. Okay, cool, let's reset with that Musketeer in the back. Ice Golem up high now just to get something on top of that bomber.
Yeah, and our good friend waiting in the casting booth. Oh, wait. I'm going to hold on that thought. Wow, that is a lot of damage. I did not expect that.
And that's exactly what we're talking about Riker not doing, which is not changing up too much of what's been working. There we go, fireball in, 123 HP remains, and that is a misplaced ice golem. Doesn't keep the Musketeer alive, but still stays aggressive. Minor in, and there you go. That should do it.
Yeah, now I can say that Rich is probably really happy looking at the gameplay here, because in my opinion, MVP was that ice golem. His kites were beautiful throughout the whole game. We know Rich loves that ice golem, but the way that Riker just got so much value out of it, kept kiting back and forth, that was so smart. Great gameplay out of him. And if this is how the day is going to go, then I am really excited.
Yeah, it's been an incredible start to this weekend so far, 6 monthly final. And, you know, I love that you do talk about Rich and the Ice Golem there and how much value. It's his favorite card in the game. So big shout out to Rich Slayton, who you guys will be seeing a little bit more in just a moment. But That's one of those combos in Clash Royale, Eric, where you feel really good when you have it. It's like when you have arrows against a firecracker or arrows against Lava Hound, when you have poison against Graveyard, when you have an Ice Golem when you're going up against P.E.K.K.A. There are a few things that are as satisfying in the game because you talk about a +5 trade, a +5 elixir trade that by the time that you actually have to deal with that P.E.K.K.A, you could have already cycled all the way back around. Whatever response you needed, you're probably able to get to. And like you said, Reichert really taking that advantage and running with it in this game number 2.
Yeah, and it's that Ice Golem plus Musketeer combo where the DPS is so strong. And yeah, it is a bit unfortunate also for Viper. He had no spell to get that Musketeer off the board. It was Snowball and it was arrows. And I really, it all comes down to Reichert understanding that if I play these Musketeers all the way in the back, there's nothing he could do about it. And he did that the whole game. He did not force anything. And one more thing I want to touch on, just analyzing that game that a lot of people forget, is when you're defending these big pushes, don't forget to throw that miner up ahead onto the other tower, because that's where he got so much chip damage from.
And it messes up the sequence of your opponent's offensive push, right? Because something has to come down unless they just want to eat all of that damage, which means that maybe, just maybe, their best support card, like an E-Wiz or like an Ice Wizard or what have you, will be so far back from the push that's crossing the bridge. So not only do you get that chip damage, you also get to control parts of the game and how your opponent is putting pushes together. And right now, looking at what we're seeing on screen here,
I love
very, very fast cycle here from Reichert. And you're saying you love it, Eric. Why do you love this deck out of Reichert?
I love the evolution that we've seen from players in duels, right? At the early months, we just saw them go comfort, not really realizing what cards are in and out of the decks. Reichert just saw Snowball came out, arrows came out. Why would I not go with a bait deck here that has Dark Goblin? And I know there's no arrows, so I'm going to get a positive elixir trade every single time that he has to use a spell here. Or I'm going to bait out the Bar Barrel if he does have Bar Barrel or Log, be it actually no Log either because of that Hog deck. And he's going to have to pick and choose what he defends over and over again in a missed Fireball.
And you see that, yeah, maybe trying to do a little bit too much, take off the first 2 goblins and then maybe hit the Fire Spirit as well, as that is probably the best way to spend the elixir to mitigate the most damage. But you got to hit all 3 of those units if you're not going to hit the 3 goblins. So just to keep piggybacking and maybe go back down that rabbit hole that you were just talking about, yes, Log out of cycle, all those other cards that you're mentioning out of cycle, arrows not there, which is why we see the Bar Barrel, which is why we see this Fireball coming out regularly on top of the Goblin Barrel. So a lot of negative elixir trades here that are going to come through from Viper because of Reichert's ability to recognize what is available and what is not.
Yeah, and the Mother Witch actually got so much value in that push to the point where now he's on his back foot. Maybe he decides to go here with the barrel as well. And no, he's going full on defense. Actually, yes. I thought I was doing the right thing, and then it looked like I was wrong, and then I was right again, and I got all confused.
It's the curse of the caster. He heard you say it. He immediately goes, all right, I'm throwing in a Bar Barrel. Even if it loses me the game, I have to make sure the curse of the caster is true. And right now, that Royal Giant coming down the lane. DPS coming in with the Knight and the Dark Goblin. But on the left-hand side, we're going to see a Mega Minion connection as well, while we see a Goblin Barrel get taken off the board with a nicely placed Barbarian Barrel from Viper, 1451 to 1854, as the Frenchman goes back on offense.
Yeah, he needs to get these Mother Witch off the board a lot sooner, man. That is what's causing him so much problems here. And it's not even the Mother Witch itself. It's all those Hoggies spawning in sooner than he would want. But this is the key to victory for him, right? Dark Goblins are never played on the same side as the Goblin Barrels, and he's making him really make a decision on where that Bar Barrel is going to go.
And you see there, Goblin getting a ton of value. Skeletons come down to protect. Another Bar Barrel, or excuse me, Goblin Barrel should be coming out very soon here. But instead, he drops the Knight all the way back to defend here on the right-hand side. Maybe wanting to focus on that Mother Witch. Bar Barrel should be back in cycle as that Fireball comes down.
He missed
High
one.
Bar Barrel. He misses one again. 10:55 to 14:28. It's getting closer and closer here for Viper. Reichert's lead slowly diminishing.
And I don't know how many people have seen a log bait deck in Triple Elixir, but it brings back 2v2 memories where you just see barrels flying everywhere. Dark Goblins will stack 2 or 3 on the board at a time. It is so much fun to watch, but it is so frustrating to play against. Every time you think you defended, there's another barrel coming your way.
You know, high Inferno Dragon or low, depending on which way you look at it, going to get taken off the board with that RG plus Fireball. Barb Barrel in to take the Goblin Barrel off the board. 1 minute left. Elixir is flying right now, as are all of the barrels, as my co-caster just mentioned a moment ago. Another barrel coming in here. No Fireball available. There it is. There's the Fireball. Does mitigate the damage, but a lot spent on the left-hand side.
Yeah, and this could all get a delivery on top of it. There's the delivery, and he just spent Fireball. He spent the barrel. He spent the Dark Prince. Everything on just 3 Elixir. So look at this defense.
Yeah, nice clean there from Riker. That Inferno Tower getting so much value. Mother Witch getting taken off the board. Bar Barrel coming in, or excuse me, Goblin Barrel coming in. No Bar Barrel in cycle, but Fireball is there. And you know what? That's okay with Riker, because anytime those Fireballs come down, that means they're not going on the Inferno and they're not going on the Princess Tower. Now we see the RG coming down the other lane, but as of right now, Eric, we are starting off with 2 upsets in our first 2 matches of the day. Riker taking down Viper and Mini Mao taking out Mohammed Light. Did you see this coming?
No, it is a good day to be the underdog. And without a doubt, I didn't see the first 2 matchups coming like this at all, to be honest. I expected 2-0, and then this one was a little bit more of a 2-1 type of match. But I think you, myself, and all of the audience really at this point thought Viper was going to feel comfortable enough to pull this out, and Reichard showing why he is that top contender to take down Morten from that #1 German spot.
Yeah, Viper now his 3rd consecutive monthly final in a row, but just not able to capitalize. Last month he was, you know, taken out by Tico as the #1 seed. The month before that, he ran into Team Queso's Ruben. And then, of course, the month before that, just not able to put it together. So when we look at what Viper's doing, what was it that Riker did so right in this set?
Deck choice, man. It is the evolution of duels format. Month 1, month 2, I said it a million times. You will see these players end up adapting more and more as time goes on. And Raykard just understanding that there is no snowball, no arrows, and no log. Eventually, you're going to overwhelm. And I even really like his Infernal Tower choice here, just seeing what options were available on the other side. There's no Hog Earthquake ready for it. So you know it's going to be a heavy deck coming out. And that Infernal Tower does so well against all of them.
Yeah, so we look here at deck #1 going up against deck #1 of Reichert, and we were very excited to see the Hog come out here from Viper. Obviously, as you and I both talked about, not Hog Xe NATO, but this is the strongest Hog Rider deck in the game with variants of that Ice Spirit, which really was the great equalizer in this game. That Ice Spirit, he got so much value out of, but then it was all Germany from there on out and the rest of this set as we look at decks 2 and 3. Let's talk about this game. What was it that Riker did so correctly with this Mortar? I love Mortar Miner deck.
It's the same thing that has haunted me for 6 years that I've been playing. Ice Golem, Musketeers, they, when used correctly, there is nothing you can do. And Riker used it as perfect as you can. He got every single elixir value out of those 2 elixir from the Ice Golem, and the Musketeer never only took out 1 troop. It would take care of the P.E.K.K.A, and then it would take care of the Inferno Dragon or the Night Witch as well. Just perfect play out of him, really utilizing both of those cards to the best of his ability.
Yeah, heavy deck there on the left-hand side, and of course the spell power a little bit lacking when you talk about taking those Musketeers off the board. As we look at deck #3, what you guys just saw, once again, all Reichert all day. And Eric, I'll let you take this one. Let's just highlight this beautiful deck and an odd-looking deck on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw it, I was really excited just because I recognized him, man. I've been analyzing players and decks for my whole career as a coach. So as soon as I saw that log bait, I got really excited just knowing what was left. And like I said, there was nothing that Infernal Tower was really going to struggle against. What was he going to bring out? You're not going to play Loon without those spells, right? You cannot play it without that Snowball or at least the arrow. So no Loon was going to come your way. It was going to be Lava, Golem, or RG. On the other hand, he recognized that, went with an Infernal Tower variation. elimination, and then just held that rocket really until the last 5 seconds. Didn't need it, understood he was going to win with cycle.
Yeah, and you talk about that fireball from Viper just not really being able to find a good place because of the goblin barrels flying so regularly from Riker. And I can talk about that matchup all day on paper. One of the most beautiful things you're going to see in regards to the duels format. But let's keep moving through this tournament. We're going back to South America for the next matchup. The Venezuelan Agony King, who just turned 16 years old, finally able to compete in a monthly final, going up against Lucas X Gamer. Do we know Lucas? Oh, right. Our former monthly finals champion from Brazil, representing Chazmac Gaming, one of our favorite players in the game. What do you think about this David versus Goliath matchup?
Well, Lucas the rookie here, no, I'm just joking. Lucas, obviously, we know Lucas. But on the other hand, man, I'm really excited to get to cast this match. I did not expect to be able to cast a fellow Venezuelan player. And if I did, I thought it was going to be Pedro, right? We've seen Pedro be the guy representing Venezuela in CRL forever. And Agony King here really not only representing Venezuela, but representing the Sparky players.
That's right. Agony King, known for his very unique, as we will say, Sparky giant deck. I've heard there's been a bit of variation in it. We'll see if we see that today or not. But when you talk about a guy that's that good on ladder, you know, he's been playing for as long as he has. He's as young as he is. A lot of interesting things to kind of come into play. You know, will we see him play comfort? Will we see his nerves come in? Will we see something we've never seen before because he's young, he's new to CRL, and he's excited to be here? And of course, Lucas on the other side of it, just one of the best, the absolute best in the world. And I know you like to give him a hard time about him being the best Brazilian or Samuel Basotto being the best Brazilian. But either way, both of those gentlemen, incredible players as they're both here in this monthly final. I say David versus Goliath because last month Lucas was dialed. He was locked. He was nails, man. He was unstoppable. Do you think we see the same thing today?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think whenever you join a new team, you mentioned it earlier, right? He joined Chazmac now. You get that extra motivation. Like, you want to start off really, really on the winning foot. You want to prove to everyone, like, yeah, this is why you brought me in. And coming from the performance last month, adding that motivation to today, apart from the day being the underdog day, I think Lucas is just gonna, I don't see him losing. And to be honest, he's my front runner for this whole month's monthly final.
I might be with you on that. Lucas has just been playing so well. I love that you bring in that extra layer of signing with Chazmac Gaming. Chazmac, just a big shout out to him. He's been such an incredible supporter in the community. I'll pop into many Twitch streams of a lot of the CR players out there, and he is just incredibly generous, incredibly active. And as you're talking about, picking up two players that are in this monthly final, one of them being Lucas X Gamer, who you'll see bottom of the screen with that glorious flowing hair, top of your screen, the Venezuelan Agony King making his debut. Here we go, match number 3 from South America.
And I didn't expect Viper to actually play his deck, but I do expect Agony to show us that Sparky deck at some point. I just don't want him to bring it out that third game. If you bring it out that third game, it's going to be really obvious to Lucas that that is your main option, right? If you don't play game 1 and 2, what's left? If there is a third game, obviously, he still has to get there versus a Lucas that has basically run through all his opponents in the past month and a half.
Yeah, I agree. I think you maybe try to surprise him with it. You don't have to rely on it as your last option to try and pick up a win. So, you know, right now, Lucas, very, very, I'd say on brand, as we see an incredibly fast cycle deck coming out of him. Archers sneak in front of that knight there, just by the fisherman, and now having to deal with these elite barbarians.
Yeah, and the only thing that he's gonna have to be very careful of running a cycle deck at this point is gonna be that Mother Witch, right? It's gonna get a ton of value onto archers, onto skellies, onto that knight when it is being hit by other cards as well. So what Lucas has to be careful here is not to give up too much value, because that's gonna force out early defenses out of you and not be able to pressure the way that you want to pressure.
Seeing the cards that we're looking at the bottom of the screen here, Eric, do we see Expo coming down the lane here in just a minute? What are you thinking out of Lucas?
I mean, I would not mind seeing it, but I also don't think it's the best deck choice nowadays with how many counters there are to the deck itself. But if there's someone that could play it, it is him, and a beautiful Electro Spirit there onto those skellies. And it seems like Agony, even though he's playing against the #1 player from last month, he's holding his own here.
Absolutely. 2064 there. This Mother Witch going to get a lot of value. Maybe a couple, two skeletons going to be populating the board here. Tesla having to come back out. You see the nod there from Agony King. Happy about this interaction. The 16-year-old playing very, very well here early on. 2246 to 2064. And it is just spell value coming out of Lucas early on. But, man, early on spell value going to be tough with this quick of a cycle deck. Second Tesla does come down. Fireball on top of the archers. And, of course, that Princess Tower. Log going to come in as well. Log will not hit the opposing Princess Tower. And Mother Witch gets a piggy on the board. This is going to be really tough for Lucas.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. The only thing that I could say here for Agony King is I think earlier on in the match, I would have loved to see an RG in the back when he was up on Elixir. I think at this point, it's just too risky. You don't want to get expoed up high and lose the match. But that is the only reason I think Agony isn't ahead by a ton. You see the deck composition and you see how much Lucas is struggling, even when the RGs are up high, that if you can just make yourself get that extra advantage, get that Elixir lead, and then play it a little more calm and play it in the back, he will take this game.
Yeah, and right there we have two pretty healthy elite. Barbarian does get turned back around. The ability that Lucas has to control this game with this cheap of cards has been absolutely mind-blowing. It's been astonishing, but it feels like the wheels are going to fall off eventually as we get deeper into double and triple Elixir. Where is he going to be able to keep up with the damage of that Royal Giant? Because the logs and the fireballs are not going to be able to do it. At least I don't think so. As of right now, he is in the lead.
At this point, they will be able to do it, but he needs to make sure he takes no damage. One RG hit will be enough here to set him back to the point where he won't be able to win with cycle, just because that fireball is on the other side as well. And I really, really like that fireball coming out of him. All his bar barrels have been really strong as well, but this is where I'm struggling to see him really break out. Once he gets that second wind, you see a lot of the top RG players just reset and RG again. He's playing these Mother Witches up high and they're not really getting any value.
I am speechless right now at what I'm watching. This defense has been so incredibly dialed out of Lucas. He's getting chip value every single cycle. He's throwing away 4 elixir every single cycle, and he's still able to keep up. And right now, Agony King starting to feel the pressure. 998, Royal Giant in. Bar Barrel not hitting the Skeleton. Skeleton's going to take the RG off the board.
There it is again.
My God, he is going to do it. 1204 to 998. Mother Witch not going to be there. Fireballs in both directions, and I cannot believe what we've just seen. I am sure this happens all the time at top ladder when you play this Expo deck, but the ability for Lucas to do it here at the highest stage in the world, my hat goes off to you, young man.
Yeah, it sure does. And just for everyone watching, that still counts as him using Expo, okay? Like, he cannot use that card in another deck, but yes, he won it without it. He did not touch that card, and that is why he's as good as he is. He recognized that the way that he loses that is playing an Expo, and the way he wins it is just all-out defense, fireball, fireball, fireball. The only thing I will say is just you got to get more value out of those Mother Witches. You should not play them on the bridge. Just wait and maybe bait out the fireball on the other side with the Mother Witch, right? Change lanes, make him really adjust to you. At this point, Lucas figured out exactly what was happening, and he played it over and over and over the same exact way.
What I think is so interesting or fascinating about this matchup was that Agony King could have changed lanes. He could have done something different, but I think he had the idea that he was going to break through. He was going to be able to break through, and he just never was able to. And you see at the very end of it, when the time actually ticks down, when the towers actually tick down, it's a difference of 278 HP, I believe, which is just a couple spells. That's another RG shot or so coming in. He just needed one more interaction to bounce his way. And like you said, Lucas recognizes the only way he loses that game is by playing his win condition. Mind-blowing.
And as you said, he thought eventually was going to break through, but welcome to being Lucas's opponent for the past 5 years. You're not going to break through because he doesn't make mistakes. That's why he was able to take that break from Clash and come back and still be as good as he is. His mind just works different, man. He knows exactly what to do with these cycle decks, and that is why he plays them knowing that his opponent will counter them. It doesn't matter. I know exactly every single matchup and how to play it. And if you don't really catch him off guard with anything, he is fine going the distance and just repeating and repeating.
You know, some of the stuff that we talked about that Agony King could have done differently, maybe changing lanes, maybe trying to bait out the fireball in the opposite lane with that Mother Witch. I think the number one thing that you said, though, was early on, which was take advantage of that elixir lead with your RG and go to the back of your King Tower. Set up an RG from the back and then see what you can make happen as that first RG crosses the bridge. Do you double down on that offense, or do you get another RG down in the opposite lane? That would have been nice to see out of Agony King, but obviously hindsight is 2020 as we get into game number 2. The Brazilian up 1, trying to pull off our first, I guess, favored seed win of the day.
Yeah, and although you can't see my face, I'm hurting for, you know, my Venezuelan friend here. Snowball and 2 barrels coming the other way with a faster cycle, and on top of that, the Prince DPS is going to be really tough for him to deal with. But I think he just broke through on the fact that the Prince maybe should have gone to the Valk and then let those Spear Goblins take care of those Skellies. But beautiful Earthquake here as well on defense to make sure that he does not take too much damage.
Yeah, really, really nice Earthquake there. It is a 3-for-3 trade, and we'll have to see how Agony King wants to deal with these pushes, these barrels more specifically, as we come further and further through this game. And yeah, looking at Lucas's deck selection, gonna be tough to match up with here. Gonna be tough for him, Lucas, to get those skeleton barrels on tower, but still, we'll see exactly how Agony King wants to play this Mortar Cannon Cart deck.
And you're gonna have to be very careful here if you're Agony King. If this matchup stays close till the end, you know those Princess are gonna come down really, really on the bridge to try and snipe some extra damage. And right now, that's all that Lucas has to do. Those 2 hits that he got out of the Goblins on the left are more than enough. Keep it in range to the point where 1 or 2 Princess hits from the bridge, if he does not predict it, will win you the game.
And we see here Earthquake being cycled offensively. There's the high Princess, just like you were talking about, but Princess will be protected with that Fire Spirit, and then the Prince coming around. Princess still on the board, now finally going to get taken off by that Cannon Cart. Cannon Cart falls off its wheels as we get a Mortar connection here on the left-hand side. A few Mortar connections, I believe. And then we see the Princess trying to mitigate some of that damage.
Yeah, that Princess just doing enough before that second Mortar hit comes down. And even though it doesn't seem like a lot in this type of matchup where you're trying to hang on and keep it within 100 or 200 point difference, it is a big, big difference whether it hits twice or once. And that is another really important feature in this, that Dark Goblin. You need to get more value than you're getting right now.
Yeah, Dark Goblin not being as much of a nuisance as you'd like when you are playing that 3 elixir card, one of the strongest ones in the game. High DPS, high fire rate, all the things that we love when you're trying to get that tower damage in. And here we go, trying to create something is Lucas. Mortar going to take the Princess off the board. Mortar will get another shot in here on the tower. High cannon card. Now we see a rocket coming out defensively from Lucas. That feels like it's game, Eric.
Yeah, that's GG. Whenever you see that rocket come defensive, you know he's struggling to keep up, and that Valk is doing a great job. But even better is his mortar placements. They have all come up high, not only taking care of the skeleton barrel, but also taking care of the Princess and then getting a hit. His mortar play has been so impressive, especially out of someone that you don't expect it from.
But here we go. Prince on tower, Goblins on tower, Prince on tower. That is going to do it, Eric. That's GG. Yep, skeletons are there. Dark Goblin on. Prince coming down once again. 135. Rocket takes 4 seconds, and there we go. Rocket in, and Agony King feeling the agony that is playing against maybe the best in the world right now. I'm sure Muhammad Light might have something to say about that, but Lucas X Gamer with the come-from-behind victory here in set number 3, match 3. What happened?
The mortar not going the same way it always has been, right? Just caught out of cycle there a little bit. Maybe that last earthquake was too aggressive out of him trying to close out the match. And we weren't wrong. We said it was GG. We were just wrong on what side it was.
Once again, the curse of the caster comes in. There's the defensive rocket. There's the mortar on the board. Yeah. And it's this Dark Goblin that starts to ruin everything. That's the beginning of the end. And now we see this push. The Prince on tower, second skeleton barrel in, second Dark Goblin down, third Prince comes down the lane. On top of that, Valkyrie, and of course, we all know what Lucas has for spell power, and Agony King cannot believe what has just happened there. And Lucas goes with a little kiss to the camera. This is par for the course, baby. There's a reason why I won last month.
Yeah, and I was just 10 seconds before that, I was saying how much I love those high mortars. As soon as he stops with those high mortars, it seems like he just lost a little bit of control in the match, didn't really force out anything out of Lucas, and that's why you don't change what's not broken.
You know, I'm so glad that you bring this up, Eric. It's something that you and I have talked about a lot in our career casting together this year. And really quickly, before I go down that road, let's take a look at this very first deck matchup. And we knew what it was. We knew what the 8th card was. There it is, the Expo, not played once so far today, even though it did show up in one deck. And Agony King on the other side of it, you know, you look at that at 5,000, 6,000 trophies, you go, oh man, I have got this in the bag. But not when you're playing against Lucas X Gamer from Brazil. He controls that entire game. It's all won on log and fireball chip damage. And let's talk about game number 2 because of what you were just speaking on, Eric. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I've been saying it for 4 years here at the desk. You and I have said it a lot this season. What is it that goes on mentally in a player's mind in that final minute when they're in the lead, they're in control, where they think, all right, let's just change it up?
It's emotion. It all comes down to emotion. He was not playing those aggressive earthquakes at any point in the game. He had always enough elixir to mortar high, defend it with the cannon cart. You saw that Dark Goblin there get hit by that earthquake, and you knew the earthquake was not going to be enough damage to take it out. So then you're a little bit behind on elixir now. You took yourself out of cycle, and even you could have even spoke about it in the first match, right? The don't fix what's not broken. Lucas did the exact opposite. He did not change one defense the whole game because it was working. And at the end of the day, man, he's still a rookie. Like you said, he's very young, and that emotion to close out the game in your first CRL versus Lucas, it just gets to you, and I think that's what it came down to.
And talking about Lucas, you know, you look at kind of the calm on his face, the poise that he's gained over the last year of competition. We are almost halfway through our Saturday. Eric, Lucas X Gamer moving on through. He is the first favored player to make it to that second part of the winner's bracket. Minnie Mao and Reichert, the two newbies, will be going up against each other in our 7th matchup of the day. Very, very exciting stuff there for both of them, I'm sure. Working through that winner's bracket is a lot easier than going through the bottom as we go and see Muhammad Light, Viper, going to be the first matchup number 5, our 5th match of the day. That is going to be a blast to call, while Agony King and Lucas X Gamer sit and wait for the next match between Samuel Basotto and Sato. Samuel Basotto making his 4th monthly finals appearance, and it does feel like he and Viper are the 2 players in the world that are the best without winning a monthly final. So Eric, it's been a treat casting with you, as it always is, my friend. You get to sit back, hang out, and watch Samuel Basotto and Sato go head to head. Is there anything that you want to leave us with before I bring Rich Slayton back onto the broadcast?
Yeah, I mean, first off, never underestimate the 8th seed. It comes back to haunt you over and over again. And I'm not saying Mo did, I'm saying us here just expecting that. And really, I'm so excited to watch that Viper Mo matchup. I can't believe one of those players is going to be the first person eliminated from CRL this month. And Rich, I know you're going to cast it, but if you don't want to, I'm here waiting. Just let me know.
All right, we say goodbye to Eric. That is a crazy point that Eric makes there about that matchup. So Eric, goodbye to you, and hello to you, my good friend, my brother from another mother, my 4-year-plus veteran, Rich Slayton. How you doing, my man, and what have you been thinking of the matches so far?
What a day today so far. Of course, and 2 big upsets.
I believe you're muted.
Huge. Oh, yes.
Which is perfect for online broadcasting. I'm sure all of you have done this in your Zoom
there
calls
you go.
at home.
Yeah. They could hear me, but you couldn't hear me. Dude, it was so many great things, right? 2 big upsets. We saw Ice Golem go hard. Let's go. You know I had to love that one. It's been a fun one so far, and this next one is really fascinating because you talk about matchups. We've had 3 very serious underdogs, 2 upsets. Sato's the most experienced of our 4 underdogs, with, I mean, a full run through CRL in the East, multiple seasons with Sandbox, with team timing. He definitely has the most experience here. The question is, how much does that matter against one of the top 5 players and one of the top 2 or top 3 ladder players of all time?
Yeah, you know, the South Korean representing my home country, they're going to have a big mountain to climb when we talk about Samuel Basotto. You know, this will be now the third time that I've said it today, but in his fourth monthly finals appearance, you know, there was obviously that one where he was at his brother's wedding, which was, he wasn't maybe able to go as far as he'd like, the connection, being distracted and all of that, but he has been very dialed in as of late. This feels like, again, a David versus Goliath matchup until you look at what you were just mentioning. He has a ton of experience in Sato. He's been around for a very long time at the highest level. Do you think nerves come into play at all today, or do you think we're just going to see two veterans go head-to-head in duels format?
I'm not super concerned about nerves on Sato's part. He's been in this position before, went all the way to second place with South Korea in the No-Tote Worlds and that great finals against China. The guy's played in big moments, but this is certainly the biggest stage that he's had for himself, I think. I just don't think it's going to faze him too much. I think he's ready for the task.
And the other side of that is Samuel Basotto. Now, I keep highlighting how great it is that he keeps coming here, but he hasn't been able to take it home. He hasn't been able to lock down that first place spot. And I'm wondering what it is that is maybe derailing Samuel Basotto. Maybe it's his deck choice, maybe it's being distracted, or maybe it's just bad luck. But today is the day, it feels like, for him to really kind of lock things down. He has what you would hope would be maybe an easier first round here, going up against someone that is making their first appearance in our monthly finals, but something hasn't been quite clicking for Samuel Basotto when you talk about being able to bring home that goal.
You know, it's so hard. It's an interesting thing to say. You know, you look at that championship moment, but you also look at the other side of that coin, which is how difficult it is just to make the top 8. Of course, top 1,000 ladder, which is easy for him, but that Swiss bracket is brutal. So many people drop their bodies through that Swiss bracket, 11 rounds of it. And then on top of that, your round robin. You know, a couple matches are going to bounce wrong for you every once in a while when you're playing Clash Royale this much, especially in duels format. I think that it's easy for us to look at the no championship, but so much better for us to look at just the overall record that Samuel Basotto has put up. It's just a matter of time, and for him, he knows, hey, I'll keep stacking checks as these months come on, and my real prize is that world championship.
You know, when we talk about that, all of what you've just said and ending it with the button of a world championship, you know, I'm pretty sure Samuel Basotto had to go through Morton to get here this month, which when you think about the last world championship that you and I were in person at, once you got through Morton, you were able to get that world championship when we talk about Liquid being able to take down Morton. So that's the type of competition that you run into every single month in the Swiss bracket, in that other, you know, qualifying stage. And it is very, very difficult even to get here. So yes, being here 4 times is incredibly impressive. You know, just to remind everyone at home, once again, we do not have the Goblin Drill in play today, but Samuel Basotto, a master of this duels format as we're waiting to get into our 4th match up here. Very curious to see what he rocks today. Samuel Basotto, bottom of your screen, top of your screen, the South Korean Sato, who, Rich, maybe he does have a little bit of nerves.
Yeah, who knows? Well, I mean, we'll certainly see it here. You know, you mentioned the Goblin Drill being banned, Andrew. I want to go back to that matchup for Reichert when he played Bait. Bait's kind of struggling in ladder right now because of the Goblin Drill Wallbreaker's Fire Spirit deck. And so people aren't really expecting Bait in competitive, but a great call from Reichert there to know, hey, I'm probably not going to be up against Fire Spirit because I'm not up against Goblin Drill, and that was a really interesting one for that moment. So you talk about some of those calls and Goblin Drill being out, that was a certain effect on the meta right there.
Yeah, it is very fascinating to think about the 2 games that these 8 competitors are playing, right? You have to get to that top 1,000 on ladder, which means you probably did it using Goblin Drill or facing a ton of Goblin Drill. And then, of course, the other side of it is that you're not able to play it here today. So what do we see? A couple of spawners early on. Furnace at the bottom and, of course, Goblin Hut at the top.
Furnace, for a minute, everyone was talking about how it was OP and broken after the change to Fire Spirits, and now it feels like it's settled down a little bit. Maybe it's still strong, maybe it's still kind of matchup dependent, but we're not seeing the Furnace explosion maybe some people expected.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. You know, I like where the Furnace is at in the game. I like that it's not super overpowered or annoying, and I like that the 1 Elixir Fire Spirit is still such a viable option. So, you know, we'll see how Samuel and Sato want to capitalize on their respective spawning buildings, as it is Samuel with a very slight deficit.
Miner goes right to the front of the tower, picked up by the Fisherman, just far enough away, as opposed to if it gone to the number 3 spot on the inside. First 2 minutes almost gone, Andrew, 22-18 to 21-10, very close here in the opening stanza.
I'm curious to see how Samuel Basotto will maybe take advantage of his Mother Witch here. You saw Sato going out and poisoning the Mother Witch just naked at the bridge earlier on, and you know, we'll see how much value he's able to get out of that poison when we're talking actual tower damage, and where it's probably just going to be spent a lot on focusing on getting that Mother Witch out of play.
Yeah, and you know, he wouldn't mind being able to use that poison on that furnace at some point. So the Mother Witch, they're playing, you know, that fireball bait role, but here with the poison instead. It's going to be an interesting conundrum. On the flip side of it, the Mother Witch, there's not a ton of targets for the Mother Witch to get excellent value on the opposite end of the board.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure when you look at what Sato's doing, he's going to just keep going in the same lane. That way, when the Mother Witch does try to come out here, as you see, he's going to get good poison value, whether it's at the bridge or ideally for him on the furnace and, of course, on the Princess Tower. Now we see Basotto going to the back with that furnace to maybe get a little bit of damage on these miners.
1798 to 1714, still very close. Royal Giant comes out high. Third time seeing Mother Witch Royal Giant on the day, I believe. So getting very popular in our competitive meta, at least at the moment, as we go into sudden death overtime.
Yeah, Royal Giant really does feel like he's popped back into the meta, even without the Goblin Drill being played. As you just mentioned, Rich, has been played a good amount today, and on ladder, seeing Royal Giant kind of make his resurgence out there in the world. It felt like he kind of was quiet for about a month or so, and here we go, Samuel Basotto, the Brazilian, going right back to the big guy.
Log and Hut doing a good job of controlling the Royal Giant most of the way through. Fireball not going to stop that cannon cart. Fire Spirit going to take those out. Log does take it off the wheels, though.
Nice little ocean of Spirit Goblins getting eaten alive by that Fire Spirit coming off the furnace. 1226 to 1510. Samuel Basotto really is the only one that showed any sort of aggression when you talk about offense. Rich, now getting a little bit of poison value, though, is Sato. So we see that Mother Witch come down in the back, and we'll see how he wants to deal with this next big push that is most likely coming from Samuel.
Well, it's interesting because they both know exactly what the game is now, right? Sato, not going to be changing lanes here at this stage with this variation of miner control. So now it's, hey, playing this catch the miner game, and Samuel Basotto content to just pound down in the same lane.
Yeah, now we get a pretty healthy Mega Knight coming across the bridge. Fireball does miss, and now we get a cannon cart behind. Maybe, yep, there he is. Miner going to the back, and this looks like a good moment for Sato.
This is really big. Great poison value. Cannon cart still on its wheels, taking some focus out now. A significant lead for the South Korean player as we go into our final 30 seconds.
Yeah, Samuel getting back on offense. RG coming in, will be tanking for that Piggy High Goblin Hut, and this is going to be dangerous because now we get the cannon cart coming off the wheels behind.
Royal Giant needs to get one shot, doesn't get it. That was the spot right there. That Royal Giant needed to get a shot. The Goblin Hut should be able to get back around and cycle just in time, and it does. There you go. Samuel Basotto knows he got caught out there at the end.
Sure did. 666 at the top to just below 500 at the bottom. Samuel Basotto not able to get that big RG hit that he needed on the very, I'd say second to last push, as the last one felt a lot more like a desperation push there. Really great composure, though, from the South Korean, Rich, and I think that kind of echoes exactly what you talked about at the beginning of this set. He might be new to CRL 2021, but he is not new to this level of competition.
No, definitely stayed comfortable there, and this is a really big, this is actually earlier in the game. That final push, which I believe we'll see in a little bit, that cannon cart going off its wheels just across the bridge. If that cannon cart dies just a little bit faster, or that cannon cart stays on its wheels just a little bit longer, that Royal Giant gets away and gets on tower and changes the entire tone of the end. But when it went down, turned that RG back the opposite direction. That was the nail in the coffin here for Samuel.
Man, when you talk about interactions in Clash Royale, cannon carts and Mother Witches being on the board at the same time with spawners going in both directions, you really have no idea what that final millisecond is going to be like, right? You don't know if that Fire Spirit Splash is going to hit the cannon cart or not. You don't know what's going to target on top of X, Y, or Z unit. And that's exactly what I think you're talking about there, Rich, when you go, wow, what great luck there from Sato to get the cannon cart to come off the wheels when he needed it and when he didn't need it. Because earlier on, you saw that Samuel had to overspend to make sure the cannon cart didn't connect on tower. That log was not able to actually get damage, I believe, on the Princess Tower of Sato. So really great stuff from the South Korean in game number one. And you know, I'm going to steal one of your lines. Second verse, same as the first. It's been all about the underdogs all day, man.
Yeah, it certainly has been. And, you know, as we go into the second game for Sato, you think about the opportunities that he has to close this one out. Notice that first game, look at what he played. He played Poison, he played Miner, he played Goblin Hut, he played Cannon Cart. And what does that mean? It means what he has left are a bunch of cards that match up really well against Hog and Wall Breakers, right? A lot of really good defensive options for playing the cycle decks that you expect Samuel to go to here. So we could be in store for our third upset of the day.
Yeah, and I love the strategy behind the deck that he did run. He was able to get through a lot of the most popular cards in the Mother Witch, in the Furnace, in the Royal Giant that might be strong in the meta right now. And now he can look at what you're talking about, what maybe Samuel goes to in the past, maybe what he goes to for comfort. And he has so many great options available. I love the kind of unorthodox start from both of these guys. I mean, really, Samuel did run something a little bit off meta, or at least something that we're not as used to him seeing, or used to seeing out of him, other than, of course, the Royal Giant.
So Spears, Bar Barrel, nice easy response there from Sato. And here we see the Fire Spirit.
How do you feel about the Fire Spirit where it's at? I'm a big fan.
You know, I am enjoying playing it a lot because I am playing some of the decks that involve Fire Spirit that some people maybe might not be happy about. And also, I despise bait. I hate playing against bait. And so having a card that ruins that deck entirely is really nice. You know, it is unfortunate that bait has this one thing that totally shuts it down, as that one elixir counters the barrel. So, you know, that's what's maybe will get looked at in the future. But for now, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit all the nails on the head there. Bait in a very odd place because of how strong that Fire Spirit is now. It really opens up your available ways to defend. Now having one that is always a +2 trade, you could use that log usually to take the princess off the board. But talking about this matchup specifically, we're looking at a lot of dual lane pressure here coming from the top of your screen, bottom of your screen. Same Basodo, just going for a pretty traditional, or at least what looks like a pretty regular Mortar Miner deck.
Well, and this is just an absolute perfect pick out of Samuel. He played Fireball last game, and maybe sitting there going, hey, Sato has a good chance of running Hogs, and look at this deck. You have Mortar, Valk, on top of that Royal Delivery and Fire Spirit. This should be fairly simple defense for the Brazilian.
Yeah, and when you talk about the royal recruits coming in, it's really easy to kind of stagger them, distract them with the Spear Goblins. You get good value with the Fire Spirit. There you go on the left-hand side. And then a Muskie that can take care of both lanes. So, yeah, the Brazilian here coming out with a great deck choice after looking at what was and was not available after game one. And here we go into double elixir with a nice lead for Samuel Basotto.
Well, and keep an eye on how hard it's going to be for Sato to contend with just the miners themselves, right? Because he has a lot in the air, has a lot that doesn't actually pick up the miner. So you're stuck with either trying to time a bar barrel perfectly and hope it goes to that nice spot, but you need that bar barrel at the bridge, and recruits are not going to be an excellent option consistently for that miner. Just a really, really tough spot for him.
Yeah, that bar barrel, or the bar barrel kind of looking for the Spear Goblins is going to be very tough for this entire game. Those Spear Goblins getting so much value, making that flying machine that much less effective, which is really kind of one of the biggest win conditions as we found out over the last few months in this deck. Obviously, you look at it, you go, oh yeah, it's the Royal Hogs, the Fireball, but really the flying machine sneaking in has been a key to victory many times for people running this deck. Nice King Tower activation there from Samuel.
Yeah, abusing the flying machine should be where we see Sato go, but the question is, will he be able to actually get past the strong combination here with the Royal Delivery and the Musketeer as well?
Wow, nice timing there. Flying machine does not get targeted by the Muskie, so delivery has to come down, but still should be pretty easy to clean up here from Samuel.
You know, I lost my train of thought there for a second, Andrew. You might have heard it, because when I saw Poison, I had to double check to make sure who used Poison last game. We've seen it so rarely. But yeah, Poison now on both sides.
Poison out here from both of these gentlemen as that Mortar does lock in. That's a big lock there, and right now, Sato in trouble, Rich.
It's just so hard for him to break through. The flying machine is really the best hope for him in this matchup, but has not been able to stack it and abuse it here maybe the way he would have hoped. So, Samuel Basotto, really excellent pick. Good read of what happened in game number one and what was played in game number one, and got a really, really good matchup.
Yeah, exactly. There's just so many options available, and right there you can see he doesn't even have to play safe. He can just, you know, get that flying machine off the board, take a little bit of damage, get the poison in, take a little bit more damage on the right-hand side, and just walk away with game number 2.
Yeah, that was just really, really smart. Really, really smart. One step ahead with the deck picks there, and of course, you know, you already have Samuel, who's so good at outplays when he's in a bad situation. You throw him a good matchup on top of that, and it's just a brutal night for your opponent.
Yeah, so now here we go into game number 3. Samuel Basotto riding the coattails of a wonderful matchup in game number 2, and I'm sure that was no accident. Game number 1, an odd kind of back and forth with the Goblin Hut being the stronger of the 2 spawners to Samuel's Furnace, and now in game number 3, Samuel still has a lot of stuff available that's really popular in the meta. He still has Hog, he still has Earthquake. Maybe he goes to that Firecracker deck, as we know that he does love Hog Rider, or is that maybe a little bit too predictable?
Well, it's an interesting situation, right? Because it's almost similar in some ways to the situation that you saw Muhammad Light in earlier, where he had not yet played Hog Cycle, but was in a situation where he was worried that maybe he would go up against arrows and that would take off his Firecracker or his archers. I think he was playing Firecracker most likely in that matchup if he wanted to do it. So a similar situation here for Samuel, where he knows Tesla's not in the game anymore, so that opens up a lot for him lane-wise, but he also knows that there are a number of options for Sato that could totally shut down a Hog EQ with Firecracker deck. So this is a tough pick for Samuel in game 3.
Yeah, tough pick indeed for both of these guys. And game number 3, which will be the last one here in match 4 before we get into a very surprising match number 5 in our losers bracket, or our elimination bracket, as Eric was saying before. 2 of the top players in the entire monthly final. One of them going to be eliminated here in just a moment. But first, we continue through Sato and Samuel Basotto. I know that this isn't the match of the day. I know that we're not supposed to do this, but do you have a pick for this game, Rich?
Man, this is going to be a tough one. I mean, it's hard for me to ever bet against Samuel. I think he has some pretty good options here, and Tesla being out of the game, I think, opens up some good opportunities for him at this stage. I don't think that we're going to see him get caught in a 100-0 matchup against. So at that point, anytime you give him a sliver of hope, it seems like the advantage goes Samuel, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know, for some reason, based off of what we've seen in the first 2 matchups between these guys, I feel like Samuel has more available cards that really cater to his play style, but that's because I'm more familiar with Samuel. You know, maybe if I'd been following Sato for the 5 years that he's been playing competitive, I'd know, oh, well, yeah, he's used all of these cards, but he still has this as a comfort, and that's just familiarity, honestly. I think I'm with you. I still go Samuel because it's hard to bet against him, and a lot of the things that we've seen him be most successful with are still available, and some of the stuff that's the most popular in the meta when you talk about maybe P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider, maybe busting out some Graveyard with Double Witch. A lot of things still available. Obviously, Mother Witch not, but there is still the Witch and the Night Witch. So here we go. Samuel Basotto and Sato, game number 3. And I think you and I are both going with the Brazilian, who is now also on Chazmat Gaming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? You know Fireball is out, so it opens up your opportunities to play, or you play the Mother Witch if you hadn't already used it. And here we go. It's going to be the Bomber, so maybe is Samuel going Golem here in game 3?
Interesting. I mean, so we're seeing double Bomber, we see a Goblin Cage, and now an Inferno. We might be seeing some Graveyard. And top of your screen, maybe Sato's going to go with, you think he goes E-Giant here?
It's not unlikely, and you do mention the idea of Graveyard, and for Sato knowing that Mother Witch is not in the game, that does open, and you look at this, look at all these different pieces, this feels a whole lot like Graveyard because of the Bomber specifically, but this could be E-Giant for E-Giant.
Yeah, E-Giant really is kind of, it's taken a lot of the very popular cards from Graveyard and repurposed them to back this big dude, this 8 elixir mammoth that once he gets on tower is just brutal to deal with, and Samuel just kind of walking down the lane, cleaning up everything along its path.
Yeah, but a nice bit of elixir on the board right now for Sato, and this really could be E-Giant, but you know, you look at Poison being out for Samuel and Mother Witch being out. If this is Graveyard, that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and this still could be a Graveyard deck. There is a very popular Graveyard deck out there that is running these exact same cards. It's kind of repurposing Splash Yard, which matches up very, very well when you talk about being able to control the game, especially with how popular E-Giant was just a month ago. And right now, Samuel Basotto, the first one to go on offense, but Sato playing very, very calm right now, waiting to pull the trigger as we get into double.
And the change in this game, and it is Electro Giant in the end, the change in this game with Bomber going to 2 Elixir is just so massive. It does make it so much more viable, and I've had some discussions with some of the pros back and forth about where they feel Bomber is, and the only reason they say we don't see it as much as we think it should be is because dual format only allows it in once.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point that you make. Bomber's so strong right now, able to get back on the board regularly because of exactly what you're talking about in that 2 Elixir, cost and also what it matches up with so well in the meta right now. So it is E-Giant for E-Giant as one comes down here from the South Korean. You saw Samuel get a little bit of chip damage there with his Magic Archer up high, and right now it's going to be all about control in this game. It's going to be about good lightnings coming in, and honestly, I think the great decider is going to be the tornado. Who gets the most effective tornadoes off later in the game?
Well, speaking later in the game, we are going to the sudden death overtime. Game number 3, winner stays in the upper bracket. Loser does go down for another difficult matchup, has to fight with only 1 life to give in that lower bracket. 22-16 to 21-53 is the score.
Yeah, I'm sure Agony King is just foaming at the mouth down there waiting. And you see there a double lightning come out, 6 zaps coming on through, and an Inferno Dragon getting picked up by that baby dragon. Is that E-Giant still just taking up that Princess Tower's attention?
Yeah, that was fun. It almost felt like just the lightning suddenly had 6 strikes, the way they were timed perfectly there.
E-Giant setting up in the back here for Samuel Basotto, and South Korean responds in kind.
On one hand, it feels like the Inferno Dragon is not going to get what Samuel wants, but this is what I'm about to say, is this Magic Archer really feels like it's going to be the difference maker in this matchup with the ability to control on both sides and stop those E-Giants from connecting. The Magic Archer value on tower might be the way this game gets decided.
For sure, Rich. I think that was a really, really great pull there by Samuel Basotto to get some more chip damage in when he recognized that NATO was used aggressively on offense by Sato on the last push, trying to get that Dark Prince on tower. He used the NATO, and then because of that, Samuel was able to capitalize, which is why you see him in a bit of a lead right now. Curious to see if he'll ever get another Magic Archer on tower, though.
Well, at this point, doesn't need it, right? They can play the lightning for lightning game. Really, all it is for Samuel is make sure the E-Giant doesn't connect tower, and I have the game won. Just has to make sure that's what happens.
There it is. Nice NATO to pull back. Electro Giant to go offensive. I love that. Now the lightning for Sato is a lot harder to use as a lightning comes down for Samuel Basotto.
Very, very well played for Samuel. Great job earlier on in the matchup to make sure he got that Magic Archer value on tower. There's a bit more there just to cap it off. Smart put to get that Magic Archer in this deck, and really, really great capitalization there for the Brazilian.
Yeah, that was really the decider there. The tornadoes coming out from both of these guys late game 1. You saw Sato trying to make something happen. The other, Samuel, just looking for his opportunity. And when he saw that it was out of cycle, that makes it so easy to get that Magic Archer on tower.
Well, it's an interesting piece of synergy, right? Because you think that the one problem with E-Giant is that it's one of those decks that it feels like it either destroys or gets destroyed, because there are some matchups where it's just so hard to get it on tower. Well, what do? You put something else in there that can solve that problem if you can't get the Electro Giant to touch tower, and the Magic Archer, perfect here in that situation.
And the other thing about this is Electro Giant pushes are so much better when you start them from the back, but look at how slow he is, and there you see Samuel Basotto capitalizing on the placement there. NATO comes in, doesn't matter at this point, already damage done.
Well, you're already running NATO in most Electro Giant decks, and what else goes well with NATO? Magic Archer. So really just a lot of fun to watch from Samuel. Very, very smart way to shore up a weakness in a very popular deck in these dual mode battles. And that's a big time win. So not just have we avoided another upset, but both of our Brazilians, both of the Chazmat Gaming representatives, moving on here in the winner's bracket.
Yeah, and going to be playing against each other in our last matchup of the day. So Chazmat Gaming, no matter what, one of their players will stay in the winner's bracket. Minnie Mao and Reichert, Lucas X Gamer, and Samuel Basotto. And you can just kind of move through these decks as we're talking about the bracket as well, because these decks, we talked about deck number 1 quite a bit earlier on. We can move on to deck number 2. This is where it felt like Samuel's strategery, his decksmanship really came into play, was in deck number 2. Deck number 1, it was the matchup between the Spawners and, of course, the Royal Giant. And literally would give my arm and a leg just to talk about deck number 2 right now.
Well, look, you look at that first one, you see what got taken off the board on Samuel's side, and Sato makes a decent read of like, hey, Royal Hogs might be good in this moment. Well, Samuel built a good grouping of decks, right? And I think that going with what he went with in game number 1, showing what he showed in game number 1 to open up what people might think they should go for in game number 2, and then just having a deck that was stacked in order to kind of bait that trap. Really great call here from Samuel.
Yeah, and you talk about this deck really catering to the way that Samuel plays. He can play over defensive and just worry about that minor chip damage, and he is a very good mortar player. Obviously, you and I and the other 2 gentlemen that cast with us talk a lot about other players out there like Igor, like Lapacati, but Samuel Basotto is a very strong mortar player as well. And then here we go. Deck number 3, game number 3, exactly what we're talking about, Rich. And you said it perfectly. All of these cards, especially NATO, line up so well with Magic Archer, and that Magic Archer was the great equalizer in this game number 3.
Yeah, the only thing I'm really curious about here now, sort of revisiting this deck, is putting both the Bomber and the Ice Wizard together in this matchup.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen people put the Bomber in for the Ice Wizard because now that the Ice Wiz dies to Fireball, hey, you know, let's go ahead and get another splash card in there that's cheaper, that makes that Fireball an even worse elixir trade. So, you know, maybe it's just that I have not experienced all the different variations of Electro Giant right now, but seeing both of those in this deck does confound me a little.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about control, you have a lot of it. You've got the Cage, you've got the NATO, you've got the Ice Wizard, or if you're going to take out the Ice Wizard, you know, you've got the damage there as well. So if you're going to take out, or you're going to have both these cards in there, I think you need to get rid of one of them for something that has a lot more single target DPS, or like what we saw there, the ability to pierce through and get on tower. And here we go. There's the bracket that we were so excited to talk about a moment ago. Minnie Mao and Reichert, Lucas X Gamer, and Samuel Basotto will be closing out the winner's side of our bracket. But Rich, for now, we're going to go down to the elimination side.
Yeah, this is where people are on the chopping block, and you know, who would have thought that the first one out was going to be Molite or Viper? We'll find out very soon. And then Agony King and Sato both trying to stay alive on that lower bracket, on that elimination bracket. So for them, every single match now matters even more than beforehand, and they want to stay in that mix. A tough road for any of those 4 to make it to that championship.
Yeah, I mean, we will be giving out $2,000 per match for the next 2 matches here, but Mohamed Light, a man that's walked away with 20K, maybe not going to be satisfied with just 2. Viper on the other side of it, he keeps coming back to the monthly finals, Rich, but he's just not able to close it out. And now you talk about quite a mountain to climb in his survival in the elimination bracket going up against our very first monthly finals champion.
Yeah, this will be very interesting for Viper indeed, and interesting for the other side of things on Molite's side. You know, they had some tough matchup situations in the first game, kind of found themselves in a rock and a hard place with their deck pick for game number 3, and came up with Snake Eyes in that last one. Nice choice of words there for me going up against Viper now. We'll see if they have regrouped and are focused for this matchup.
Yeah, Viper, the favorite, who fell to Reichert. Really strong showing there from the German. And now Mohamed Light, it was really impressive from Mao of how well he controlled that first set. We'll see if Mohamed Light is going to be able to take that control back, as we're so used to him seeing. But right now, not in a great cycle spot with Mega Minion and Cage out of play.
And the arrows just able to save a balloon connection from making it on that right-hand side. So Mohamed Light comes out better than he thought, maybe, in a very tight situation.
Yeah, now you talk about Molite being able to defend with what he just had, which was just in the nick of time. Now he knows not to cycle that Mega Minion carelessly. He knows that he needs that Goblin Cage to be available, and now we'll see how Viper's going to capitalize with this Minor Loon deck.
And you talk about top-tier ladder players, and especially in the modern day, you have to include Viper in that conversation. Has put up, I want to say, three top 3 finishes so far this year. If you expand that to top 10, 5 top 10 finishes in 2021 already. An 87.03 personal best on ladder. Viper knows how to play in that mode.
Wow, 87.03, and we know that the majority of that was done with his comfort deck, with his go-to Hog Exi NATO deck, which is just so fascinating that you talk about someone that can be that dominant at that level, and he's never played it at CRL.
Minor P.E.K.K.A. Loon for Viper. Balloon controlled fairly well here by Mo.
Arrows, a little bit of an overspend there. You see Mohamed Light tilt his head, recognizing that balloon would have gone down anyway. Now 3 elixir less than he'd like to maybe start a push. He hasn't been able to get on offense yet. And that would have been a great moment for him to do it.
Yeah, it was a nice idea from Viper there to try to slow down the Princess Tower enough for the balloon connection, and turns out it didn't do it. So sort of maybe a -1 trade there in the end for the Egyptian.
A really interesting interaction there. The Fisherman pulls the Mega Knight away as that P.E.K.K.A. comes in close, getting pulled in by the Fisherman of Mohamed Light. So the big guys don't see each other, but still not a lot of damage in here on Mohamed Light's tower.
Arrows do get on both the Inferno Dragon and the Balloon. No full connections yet, but death damage starting to stack up right now for Viper.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is maybe the push that we get. It feels like with what we're seeing out of Mohamed Light, it is going to be something big, whether it's a Graveyard or like a Royal Giant. And as of right now, he's just having a very difficult time staying alive as he crosses that river.
Well, P.E.K.K.A. certainly going to make it a tough day for the Mega Knight, and the Miner goes right to that Mother Witch. Does the Fisherman get there in time to save? And a second Mother Witch down. This could get very interesting.
Yeah, I like the second Mother Witch in. You see the bat spawning here. The P.E.K.K.A.'s going to spawn another pig there. Graveyard finally comes in as another pig is going to come down from this Inferno. Mo's been patient, but this is his moment, Rich.
Yeah, this is not going to be easy for Viper at this stage. Snowball can, as you see, knock out and make some room. The arrows get in to help with some of those bats. Wow. This is a nice moment, and Mo does take control of the game. Yeah, one of those piggies looked like it was on the tower for that entire push there. Skeletons tanking for the piggies and vice versa. A really, really nice turnaround there from the Egyptian. Mega Knight absolutely obliterated by the P.E.K.K.A. Inferno Dragon combination. Nice catch there on the Miner. That's big time for Mohamed Light. Snowball in on defense, not going to be as much as you would like. P.E.K.K.A. going to take some of the damage, but not quite enough. Arrows have to come out, and now the Elixir beginning to go in the way of Mohamed Light from an advantage situation. 35 seconds left. Mohamed Light spent so much of this game just trying to get across that bridge with a healthy push, and when he was finally able to do it, we feel how radically this game has shifted in such a short amount of time. Piggy on the tower, Mega Knight up close, Skeletons coming in. That's gonna do it, Rich. Yeah, that was one of those games where if Viper won that in single or even the first half of double, that was going to be the place where he had the advantage. Once that triple came up, man, it was really that when that second Mother Witch came down, yes, and you saw Mo start to have a little bit of a flow, that's where this game changed. Yeah, the Mother Witch protection or the Mother Witch aggression, whichever one you want to call it, because Mohamed Light did a lot of both. This is that push. This is the very tail end of that defense turning into this big offensive push, and that one piggy up front putting in work and now tanking for those last two Skeletons. 1140 to 1607, just like that. And then what felt like what was great for Viper, which was he had control of the game, which was forcing everything to happen in this lane. We all know the moment that Graveyard damage comes in, you want to be able to get away from that Princess Tower as soon as possible, but there was just no way to do it that late in the game. And that's the important thing you just said there, Andrew, that late in the game. Once this hit triple, it just gave so much more to Mohamed on both the offensive and defensive side of the board. We saw how he almost got caught flat-footed 2 or 3 times by balloons in the right-hand lane during the earlier phases of the game. Balloons that really felt like, oh, that one might really hit. And even one of those connecting could have changed the tenor of the entire matchup, but instead able to avoid those and get to triple elixir without being too far behind. Get it done.
I know I've talked about him quite a bit today, but this game actually even further impresses me with Mini Mao's playstyle earlier on, because if you look at Mohamed Light and all the games he's played today, I believe he's basically gone the full 5 minutes in almost every single one of them, which I just have to tip my hat to the young Mini Mao coming into this and being able to hold his own, because we even saw Viper in this game not really have control through the last couple minutes. And as you said, Rich, once it got into triple, it was game over, man. There was no way Mo Light was going to lose from that point on. But the control that we saw in set number 1 now being replicated here in set number 5 from Mohamed Light, who does pick up the win. It's just really impressive of how we started our day.
Yeah, I mean, Mo certainly playing that matchup really well and controlling, as you said, excellent during single elixir. Might be seeing him go to something a little bit more fast in its cycle this time around, what we hope to see out of, and there we go. It's going to be the hog deck out of Mohamed Light, which is an easy King Tower activation early.
We see a NATO and an Ice Wizard here out of Viper early on, and, you know, maybe we'll see some other cards that we like to see out of Viper.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah, well, it was fun. It was fun for a moment.
Yeah, well, we thought.
We'll see if he's going to decide to go to Electro Giant or if he's going to go to Graveyard.
You know, talking about you mentioned that Mao match, and this is one of the decks that Mo probably wanted to have an opportunity to run there in game number 3 of the match against Mao, but he was worried about arrows. He was worried about that being a possibility, and it was pick your poison. Either you're up against arrows with this Hog Firecracker deck, or you're up against Fireball and maybe Mother Rich with Graveyard. And in that case, just the pick came out wrong. I would have liked to see the Hog there. I think the outplay potential might have been better. But either way, you go to this game, and he sees arrows played in game number 1 and knows, okay, I can play Firecracker now because arrows are out.
Yeah, I do love that call there from Mohamed Light. And, you know, still not going to be an easy game here for Mo as you look at all of the responses that his opponent has. Viper going to take a little bit of damage here, as he knows this is healthier of the 2 towers as opposed to activating King or using a NATO. He wants to get back on offense early here. He knows that single elixir is where he's going to get punished the most, so he's actually going hyper aggressive, which I'm not upset about it, Rich.
Yeah, holding on nicely. That you shouldn't get too much, but the Hog gets in front of both the Valk and the Firecracker. Cage by itself against just a Hog Rider can fully counter, but the Valk and Firecracker make that more difficult.
Yeah, when you talk about knowing Hog interactions, Viper has to know them probably some of the best in the entire world. And right now, you can see he's not really scared of the Hog. He knows all the ways that he can control it, but this cycle is very tough to keep up with.
NATO controls nicely. You see the high Tesla there to help with the Firecracker against the Baby Dragon, and knowing he doesn't have to pull anything for that Tesla does make that decision much easier. And the Earthquake on defense, underrated against Graveyard.
Yeah, totally. Great response there, but now you see the Goblin Cage coming out very, very high here. Still going to allow that Firecracker to get splash damage. That was a great interaction there. Hog Rider gets on tower for Mohamed Light.
Yeah, you got to hate that if you're Viper, right? You have an activated King Tower and a Cage played against the Hog Rider. You feel like that shouldn't get a shot, but when the elixir starts flowing, things can happen.
A little bit of splash damage there, giving Viper the lead, 1636 to 1744 in opposite corners here, and that's probably how it's going to stay, as Mo does not want to go down into this right-hand lane, knowing that that counter push means a stronger Graveyard.
Lock coming down the right-hand side. Graveyard will have a full tank for it. NATO easily controls that Hog Rider. No messing around this time. EQ and Valk clean up most of that, but the Ice Wiz gets in a couple of big-time shots.
That's really been it so far, and there's another one, Rich, and there's another one. That's 5 Ice Wizard hits coming in the last 2 exchanges, and just like that, Mohamed calls good game, knowing that he's down in damage now, and there are just so many options for this Hog Rider. There's the NATO once again. Earthquake has to be used on defense to get these skeletons off the board, and it's just trouble for Mo right now.
Yeah, this has been really, really challenging. Look, triple elixir, certainly if he can keep the Baby Dragon splash damage off tower, he might have an opportunity here to get some chip through with that EQ cycle, but man, this is going to be difficult.
Yeah, you see that Firecracker coming in, one Baby Dragon Belch gets on top of the Firecracker, so that Bar Barrel makes it easy pickings. Hog Rider can come back in, but Goblin Cage should be available. Nope, NATO's back around.
Yeah, and that's the problem here. It's going to be either NATO or Cage every single time. And those are two real big problems for the Hog Rider, but cycles back around very quickly. This time doesn't have the EQ because he just played it for the damage. Now gets to it just a half step late, but man, this is just a rough one here for Mo.
Yep, and that's just going to be easy stuff here from here on out from Viper. You see that Hog Rider sneaking in front of the Valkyrie again. There's the Cage. The Prince is there. Splash damage is there. Doesn't really matter. 324 to 1102 and enough time for another fireball.
Well, here we go. Game number 3. You didn't want an easy out for either one of these two, and we're not going to get it. We are going to a third and final between Mohamed Light and Viper.
Yep, one of these boys going to get eliminated and walking away with $2,000. The other one's still on the path to the 20K, and of course, all of those leaderboard points, which technically Mohamed Light doesn't really need, but I'm sure he'd like to add a little bit more to that cushion, that lead that he has there. And what a great matchup for Viper here in game number 2.
We know we talk about setting and springing those traps. Viper plays arrows in game number 1, which opens up for the Firecracker, which makes Hog feel a little bit better. And you go, oh, you feel better about Hog, do you? And you throw out Goblin Cage, Ice Wiz, NATO, which creates a whole bunch of problems for the guy with the hammer, and that's a GG.
Yeah, and it's crazy there. You see the good game coming out from Mohamed Light. The biggest nuisance that he had offensively was the Ice Wizard. Now, obviously, that came with so many other pieces that had to go correctly first, but it was the Ice Wizard damage that came in 2 pushes in a row that really made that gap insurmountable for Mohamed Light. When you talk about trying to break through with Hog and EQ, when you have to use Earthquake always defensively for that graveyard, there was just no way, man.
Yeah, it definitely felt like Viper created some cycle problems for Mohamed Light at certain points, right? The EQ on Graveyard, you'd love to just go and say, hey, I can Valk and Electro Spirit on Graveyard, but then controlling the bridge battle, controlling the Ice Wiz, the Dark Prince, and the Baby Dragon, the Tesla wasn't going to be enough on its own. Very, very difficult spot there for Mohamed Light, and very well played for Viper.
The other thing that was so great about what Viper did early on was he stayed overly aggressive, almost so much so that it made me like, I don't know if this is what you're supposed to be doing, but he's played this so much. He's played, I'm sure, all Hog decks so many times that he knew the worst thing that could happen for him was to sit back and take 1,500 damage in single elixir. It was all about staying hyper aggressive because that deck doesn't match up well against Graveyard. Valkyrie's a pretty good response, and Earthquake's a pretty good response, man, but you don't want to use those defensively every single sequence.
Yeah, that was a rough one. And now we go into game number 3 and look at the spells that have been used so far. On the side of Viper, Giant Snowball, Arrows, Fireball, Bar Barrel, and Tornado. On the side of Mohamed Light, Giant Snowball, Arrows, Earthquake, and Logs. You gotta wonder if Mo's gonna be going to Fireball this time around, or as he brings out the Bomber, could it be Lightning?
I was just going to say it. I wonder if we see one of these guys go to bait and we see Viper go to it immediately, as it has been a good choice later on in these sets after you look at all of the spell power that is available or unavailable. And the Dark Goblin, we all know how much of a problem he can be.
No arrows, no log, no snowball for Mohamed Light.
And a nice...
And he's not happy.
Yeah, I wonder why. You know, when you look at this matchup, you look at the responses that his opponent has, you know, nice bomber there to clean up whether it was the Skeletons or the Fire Spirit out of his opponent. But Skeletons, Fire Spirit, Dark Goblin, and of course that Valkyrie, all of those cards going to make it so that that E-Barb push is basically always going to be a positive trade for Viper. And then also when you look at Mo's responses to that Goblin Barrel, he might be in a lot of trouble here, Rich. And wow, Rocket on top of the Inferno, that just hurts.
Yeah, I'm wondering what Mo and Julesy were looking for here in this matchup. You know, again, like you get down to game number 3, you have 2 decks remaining. You're kind of looking at what your opponents played so far, and you have some tough choices to make. And I'm very curious as to what the read was here.
And I think you also have to adapt to the day, too. You know, you look at the things that are going on, and the popularity of bait late in sets has been something that we've seen almost religiously at this point, and it's been so hard to keep up with because of exactly what we're seeing. Look at that. Where's the spell power? Where's the positive trades? They're nowhere to be found for Mohamed Light.
A little extra chip there on the right-hand side. So far, pitching a shutout is Viper. No damage in either lane.
There you see a 5-for-1 trade. Inferno's going to come out there, going to sizzle that down, and man,
wow.
Yeah, I think everyone heard that out of you. You didn't even have to say a word to just know this is going to be a rough, most likely loss for Mohamed Light, or one of the most brilliant, tough matchup plays we've ever seen.
And Zap, what an interesting choice. So he has the negative trade for Fireball, he has the damage trade for Zap, and a damage trade for Magic Archer. I wonder if at some point we see Mo set up for Magic Archer, in that if you see where the little green is right behind the King Tower to the right, you can put the Magic Archer on that tower, on that tile, and get 2 of the goblins from the Goblin Barrel. I wonder if he sets up there. The only problem is then you give Magic Archer plus rocket value on tower.
Yeah, and that rocket's still going to be available for whenever he needs on these types of pushes, but honestly, because of all the options that we spoke about earlier, he's never really going to have to use that rocket defensively unless it's straight panic, or if it's a huge swing by Mohamed Light, and then Viper's just trying to stop the bleeding. So really tough here matchup for Mohamed Light, who was fighting for his life down in the elimination bracket.
It feels like the one way that Mo wins this is more going to be about maybe a bit of a mistake or trouble for Viper, is if an Inferno Dragon escapes and Viper either has not enough elixir to throw a rocket on it, or is forced to throw a rocket, gets down negative trades, and suddenly gets a bit of a swing to Mo. Those are the 2 ways. Otherwise, it's going to be real difficult.
And I think Viper recognized that already after the last push of that Inferno Dragon breaking through, because the amount of pressure that he is keeping on the board is making it impossible for Mo to just set up an Inferno in the back once again. It's just Fire Spirit after Barrel, after Dark Goblin, and then the cleanup for him is so easy on the opposing side.
Man, you gotta wonder how many people prepared for bait at all, and Mo just waves the white flag here. Not even to play the last 3 minutes, the last minute of triple elixir.
And just like that, our former champion, our #1 seed, the leader of the leaderboard, throws up the white flag, Rich, and he is walking away with $2,000 and last place this month. Well, 8th.
Yeah, I mean, or tied for last, however you want to call it. Man, I understand that's a really brutal matchup, and you're probably not going to win. The 500 something HP left, triple elixir on its way, the chance for a mistake or a disconnection or something. Man, I don't love I understand the wave the white flag there. I just don't love it.
I'm in the same boat. I think you and I are both competitors. We're both sports fans, and we're both fans of Mohamed Light. I think that's the other big part of the equation here. We love to see him play, and you always hate to see anyone give up, but I'm with you, man. I wish that he would have kind of just powered through to the end to make his loss look a little bit more fun on camera, but there was just no way he could do anything in that matchup.
No, it was absolutely brutal, and Viper definitely. I'm very curious. Maybe we'll find out later. I don't know if Julesy or Mohamed Light will tweet about it later. We'll get an idea of what they were looking for in that final game, but hopefully we will see something. I'm very curious what the matchup was they were going for.
Yeah, and talking about matchups here, let's talk through these decks. Deck #1 from both of these guys, and it was all about Mohamed Light's patience and, honestly, some great arrow usage early on to stop those balloons from connecting on tower. And then once he had control of that game, once he got that first aggressive graveyard down, and as you were talking about, Rich, defending that Mother Witch, getting the second Mother Witch down, it was all downhill from that point on for Mohamed Light in game #1.
Yeah, it really felt like there were a couple moments that could have gone the other way. And then game #2, and a great read here from Viper. I wonder if he was paying attention to some of the conversation. I know Julesy tweeted about the matchup choice they had in game 3 against Mao and how much arrows had played a role in that. And I wonder if Viper was paying attention to Twitter and made a call here. Play arrows in game #1, bait out Hog in game #2, and slam the door on it. And that was what he did here in this one.
Yeah, the gamesmanship and the decksmanship isn't always just about what we see and what's available. It's about what you've used to bait out something else out of your opponent. Arrows out in game 1, as you pointed out, means that Firecracker in game 2 makes a lot of sense if you look at Mohamed Light. But then Viper looks at that and he goes, great, you want to bust that out against me, whether it's E-Giant, whether it's Hog, whatever it is, those tower-seeking units, you will not be able to break through. And then you talk about game #3. This is about as rough as it gets when you talk about matchup.
Yeah, this one is brutal, and you know, their options here are limited, and it's a question of are you facing being against Logbait or Hog EQ as two possibilities. As you know, I'm actually getting some word from Julesy right now. Those are the two matchups they were looking for, and it's a question of what are they going to get the better matchup with, and they went with this call, and you know, ended up coming up against this very nasty version of Logbait with both the Inferno Tower and the Rocket and the Fire Spear on top of it. So really, really brutal situation here.
And that's the thing about duels. You really find yourself in some of these really incredibly almost unwinnable matchups. I know that there's 100-0 matchups. It feels better at CRL to say they're more like 99-1 because we are at the highest level. We have seen crazier things happen than big matchups going in the opposite direction. But Viper being the first person to eliminate someone today, and that person that's eliminated, our former champion Mohamed Light, who still walks away with some cash and some leaderboard points, but that's it for Mo this month as we move on through the elimination bracket. Two newcomers, if you will, to 2021.
Yeah, here we go. Two newcomers to 2021. Viper does stay alive. I'm getting some word to answer our questions from Julesy right now, telling me that they were expecting Logbait or Hog EQ in that final game. And the question was, what would be the better matchup for the bad matchup? And they thought they would do better against Hog EQ with bridge spam than they had Mortar Fire Spirits as their other deck against Hog EQ. So they were trying to play the four boxes of how those matchups work. They were trying to play the boxes and came up with the worst of those four options.
And that's the duels format for you, broken down by one of the best analysts in the game. And of course, you kind of being the middleman there. Thank you so much for that, man, because I can't process all that in the short amount of time that we get with those games. So to figure out what they were looking for, to figure out what matchups they wanted, just got caught looking today. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's what happens. It's part of what happens in this format. But that's why it's so valuable to get so much on so many different levels, right? You have the points you get from ladder, the points from Swiss, the points from round robin. So one matchup might mean a lot for the money in that specific moment, might mean a lot for some points. But in the end, we are still, just like we've seen the top four players here, or the top four players on the leaderboard, I believe that when we come to the end of this year, we will see the top players in the world, all of them at our World Finals.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm really excited to get to the World Finals and the last chance qualifier. But I'm getting word now that they're kicking me out of here. They don't want to see any more of my face.
Yeah, you know, it's so hard with having that good of hair on camera for this long. Makes us all feel really, really inadequate. So, Andrew, it's been fun. We'll be together again tomorrow. But now we're going to say goodbye to my good buddy and brother Andrew and bring on a multiple-time CRL regional champion. If you watch the end of ladder season, you probably go to his page on Twitch. Go ahead and invite on my friend Joshua Sharon, aka C. New look for the summer heat. Josh, talking about that summer heat, it has been wild so far.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal games. You know, obviously there's been some mistakes from some players that I'm hoping they try and clean that up. Agony King is one of those players where I was really looking forward to his games. Obviously one of the best Sparky players in the world. Obviously just such an amazing player to just watch in general. I find myself, especially in those season end streams, I watch him game after game after game because he's so talented. He does so many things. And so watching what I saw earlier, kind of disappointed, a few too many mistakes, and I hope he cleans that up.
Well, you know, it's a big difference in playing ladder, which is stressful, versus playing knowing that you are being watched by the world for the first time in Clash Royale. On the biggest stage you've been in, we talk about nerves here. You got to imagine that Sato's a bit more dialed in on the nerves factor than Agony King.
Right, and we saw it in his games. Yes, he did lose, but he started out 1-0 against Samuel. He was playing really well. Got a really unfortunate matchup in game number 2, and then Samuel just played phenomenally in game number 3, getting the Magic Archer to lock onto the tower. That really isn't his fault, and so he can feel confident going into this game. It's really up to Agony King to decide how this game is going to go.
So Mortar high with Valk, and Mortar gets an early connection here for the Venezuelan.
Yeah, surprised that he didn't have a better answer at that point, just letting the Mortar get a couple shots. I almost thought it was going to get a third, but only 2, which is not the end of the world.
Cannon card down, Piggy's in, and pretty hefty deck here from Agony King, who, you know, known as a giant Sparky player, no stranger to heavy elixir decks.
Yeah, which is really important in the duel format, especially when you're a newcomer, because when you're a cycle player, that's when it's really going to mess you up. You're going to get nervous, your hands are going to shake, you're going to do something wrong. If you are a control player, you know, a beatdown player, that's going to really help you warm up, get ready for it. And so it allows Agony King to use these heavier decks, slightly heavier decks, and that's valuable for him.
I mean, that's a good question, Josh. You bring up this point about nerves and, you know, slight misplacements. What do you think affects a newer player in terms of nerves more in these matchups? Is it, you know, your hands are shaking a bit because you're nervous and you miss a placement? Or is it, talking about heavier beatdown decks, the decision making and trying to make those good decisions in a situation where you're not used to this level of pressure?
You know, it's tough. I think it really just, it's pretty much a multitude of everything. I mean, you look at his camera and you look at the difference between Sato and Agony King. Agony King is swiveling in his chair. He doesn't look particularly focused. You can mess up placements, not think ahead. I think the main thing is, you know, slight miscalculations with placements, and then also just not thinking ahead. Usually these pro players are thinking 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. Okay, we're at 40 seconds left. By 20 seconds left, I'll play these cards and it'll give me 500 damage or something. At this point, you're kind of, oh, like, I know what's on the board and I can't really think past that. I'm just not going to worry about it. And so they definitely play at a much lower level than they're used to.
Graveyard, and on the right-hand side, Mega Knight tanking Sato with a good chance for a big chunk of damage. Skeletons getting on tower, forces out Fireball. Fireball on the Musketeer makes even more room. This is an absolutely huge early moment. Delivery down as well. So here we go. Agony King way down on damage and down on Elixir, calling good game as we go into sudden death.
Yeah, down on mindset as well. Already saying good game with 2 minutes left. And it's just not what we want to see. Using the Fireball on defense defensively on a Graveyard just never is the answer. I don't know what he should have been doing. Maybe it's based off the placements that he should have been doing earlier. There's so many other options, especially when you have an E-Spirit, which is one of the best cards in the game against Graveyard, because even if you mess up and you make a key mistake, you still have that E-Spirit that you can just place down. It chains on everything, and then it's not a problem.
Piggies come in behind the cannon cart, no cage in response. Fireball not available as well. So that's going to be a nice chunk of damage, and just like that, we are back into a fairly competitive game with 80 seconds left.
Yeah, 300 HP separating the two, and now he kind of feels like he has momentum, using the mortars correctly, trying to set up so that he can go in with the Royal Hogs when an MK is out of cycle. But MK, Fireball, and Goblin Cage is going to be difficult to put him in a position where he can't defend it easily, especially when he keeps placing these Musketeers where they walk off to the other lane if he Fireballs correctly. That's the second time that we've seen that interaction happen now.
Using that Electro Spirit just as you called there to clean up the Graveyard, and doesn't take a lick of skeleton damage, I believe. I think that he was at 913, so nice hold there from Agony King. And now putting pressure in on the left-hand lane, Vault Cannon Cart trying to break through.
Yeah, I love that he's going opposite lane. Obviously, with 35 seconds left, Fireball and Cycle, it's probably not going to do that much. But again, we just saw another key mistake. I forgot what it was that we saw from Agony King. But, oh yeah, he placed the Musketeer too high, and the Fisherman locked onto the Musketeer instead of the Royal Recruit. I mean, we're just seeing so many mistakes that we often don't see from him, and it's all chalked up to just nerves.
Final 12 seconds here. Mega Knight and Cage out of cycle. Can he sneak Pigs in time? Fireball not there, so not going to happen for the Pigs the opposite direction. And there you go, Sato taking game number 1 fairly comfortably after some Agony King missteps.
Yeah, and I just, and it's very unfortunate how that happened. And you know, we can see him furiously taxing right now, just trying to set himself up so that he has a comfort deck in game number 2. I think that's the most important thing for him. Even if he loses, you have to put yourself in a position where you can feel comfortable and just make sure that you give yourself a chance.
Just taking a look at some of the action here. This was the early mortar connection for Agony King. And, you know, it felt early on like he might have some opportunities, but you said that, as you were talking about, the big issue here were these Musketeers.
Yeah, and right there, walks off, not going to be able to get value on an E-Wiz, and then just he places them too low, and then the one time where he places it, high and correct, that's when he places it too fast, and then the fisherman locks onto it. So obviously just some mistakes, and he just needs to clean that up.
Decent job getting damage, though, despite 3 solid counters to the Royal Hogs being played from Sato. So now game number 1 in the books as we go into game number 2. Thinking about the decks that they just played, right? So we have Graveyard MK played for Sato, Fireball and Giant Snowball out, Fireball now also out for Agony King. Thoughts on what we might see deck-wise in game 2?
Agony King, just want to see heavy. Sato, I don't really know what I want to see from him. I think overall I've just been very impressed with his gameplay today and, in the past. So I think it comes down to what I feel like he can try and maybe soft snipe and try and put himself with a good matchup, but that's not really what he has to worry about. And so using these Fire Spirits, Mortar, Royal Hogs decks, these kind of quick cycle with strong defense, that's exactly what I want to see from him.
So looking like we're going to be seeing some Bowler Loon freeze here out of Agony King, which this one, when duel mode first started becoming more popular, this was actually pretty central for duels, and it's become briefly popular in the early release of Goblin Drill, with the Bowler being one of the cards that helps against that one. Interesting seeing it back here months after being kind of out of the duel mode meta.
Right, and I like that. I think it's a very strong deck overall. It allows you to outplay your opponents and, think and try and figure out what's in cycle, what isn't. And, he's obviously showing that he's somewhat confident in this gameplay with the early freeze with the Inferno Dragon and now another freeze, hoping that he gets that on, but not quite.
Wow, Fire Spirit just barely saving that connection, and a good luck out of Agony King here.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that he feels a little bit more comfortable. Notice how he's just kind of calm and collected in his chair, not really swiveling around. 1 minute, 13 seconds left. He's going against a tough matchup, but he did get early damage. At this point, we're going to see possibly Bowler cycled in the back, utilizing everything that he can, defensive freezes, and then eventually being able to overpower. Triple Elixir, because of Sato's last card possibly being Earthquake, it's going to be kind of easy for him to overwhelm as long as he sets up his pushes correctly.
Bar Barrel not there, so NATO pulls all that together, does a pretty good job, keeps both troops on the board right now. Agony King now loads up in front with a Lumberjack Balloon, tons on the board. Delivery comes out high. This is not going to turn into damage on tower, but does force a lot of expenditure out from Sato.
Yeah, gets the reset that he's looking for. Just going to be able to have another cycle where he can go Lumberjack Loon, E-Dragon, NATO, Freeze, and then he just does that all over again, repeating and repeating and repeating. And that's how you have to win this game with this kind of matchup. And I like how he's played this so far, but this is going to get tough as we head into double elixir, or as we head into overtime.
Yeah, that delivery at the bridge, might have been an overspend there, knowing that Royal Hogs were coming in cycle absolutely next. Tries to NATO line this thing up for some bowler damage.
Yeah, he's just got to be careful. I feel like he doesn't have enough troops on the board to get these NATO freezes, and it's allowing his opponent to kind of defend fairly easily. And right here, it's already game over, just never getting the right push that he was looking for.
Tried to get cute with that freeze. I understand what he was going for there, but if you're not going to get the Spear Goblins, that's not going to do anything. And Agony King doing everything he can to try to find a way, but maybe trying to find a way a bit too aggressively, or maybe some panic mode play out of Agony King.
Yeah, just too many mistakes from him. Obviously, that's not something we're going to see, when we see him in another one of these monthly brackets. He just got too aggressive and made too many mistakes, and I think it comes down to he wasn't really thinking ahead. He was just thinking in the present, the troops on the field. That's what he has to be worried about, and that's not what he has to be worried about. He has to worry about the Musketeer that can be played if he uses a freeze too early, the Spear Goblins on top of the Lumberjack. And he just stacked too much, allowing too much Royal Delivery damage as well, which was huge.
Yeah, you look at that. Gets one of 3 Spear Goblins. He gets all 3 Spear Goblins, and this might be competitive, right? This might be a moment, but unfortunately just a little bit of a early trigger there out of Agony King, and out now, down to our top 6.
Yep, and I think who do we see in the next game? I'm very excited for it. It's
oh yeah, we'll have our bracket up here in just one moment.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some of these games. I feel like all the players who have advanced this far have been playing phenomenally. And yeah, there we go. It was the 2 underdogs that we saw, and both of them, I was so impressed by their gameplay.
Mao's been good. Mao's been pretty good for a while. We'll talk about that matchup in just a moment. Of course, Mo Light and Agony King both out. Viper and Sato now going to be awaiting the 2 players who will drop down from match 7 to match 8. But this next matchup, Mao and Reichert, Mao's been pretty good for a while. He's been mixing it up. And you think about the class of upcoming pros who were playing in 2019 and 2020 in smaller tournaments and moving on. You talk about guys like Mini Minter, guys like Schwarzen. Mao's been mixing it up with those guys in that same group and has had a couple of good performances, but this is definitely an opportunity for a breakout moment for the young player.
Right, and I'm so excited to see what he's got in store for us. And game number 1, MK Graveyard going against Mortar Royal Hogs. And I mean, the matchup is probably pretty clear. You know, you have MK, you have Fireball, you have Cage. As long as you play calm, collected, you should be fine. He's not going to overwhelm, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and you know, not to mention you have Snowball if you make a mistake. You need to sort out some pigs there at the last second. So a lot of options there for Sato in game number 1. This was just a well-played, well-matched moment here for Sato. Then as we go on to game number 2, it felt like things just continued to go the wrong way for Agony King. You know, this felt like it had the opportunity to be a little bit better than the first matchup, but this is also one of those decks where you can pull off some tricky moves, but if you get too cute, it can bite you.
Yeah, so what happened in this game was the same thing that happened in his game earlier. He doesn't set up the right pushes, where when you're running these kind of control decks, you need to set up the bowler in the back. And he was consistently setting the bowler on defense against Hogs, which is good, obviously, and that's going to be a strong defense. But when you only have the bowler plus Lumberjack plus Loom plus NATO, you need a full 8-card collection in order to get past a Mortar Musketeer deck. And when you place those defensive troops up too high, you're never going to get the elixir to be able to form that. And it's just way too simple for these talented players to be able to defend.
That's a definite difficult one for them. And we're getting our next matchup here in just a moment, getting word from the booth on what that's going to be. So we might be moving around the board here in a moment. You know, talking about the 4 players that we have left in the upper bracket, of course, Mao and Reichert, both two younger players, 2 lesser-known players. But as I was saying about Mao, somebody who's been mixing it up in that higher level of the semi-pro scene quite a bit. Other side of it, Reichert, one of the top 5 players out of Germany.
Right. I mean, you guys touched on it. Always practicing with Morten. Always, you know, he's the one who's trying to push Morten to be the best because he's also trying to be the best. I mean, just a phenomenal player. Continues to get better every single month in, month out. You see the improvement with everything in his gameplay. And yeah, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with.
And then, of course, after that matchup, we have the big one, the teammates, the countrymen, Lucas and Samuel going head-to-head. And, of course, you can vote right now. Hashtag Lucas or hashtag Samuel. Vote in the chat on who you think will be the winner in that one. And, man, I don't know how you want to talk predictions? We can talk predictions for Mao versus Riker. I have my ideas there. For Lucas and Samuel, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically impossible. Both players know each other so well, so you can't do anything. Like, you can't really get crazy with decks because you know your opponent / teammate is going to know everything that you're running. Both players have experienced nerfs in the past, but, you know, they've been playing for years at this point at the highest level in front of all the cameras. So that's not really a major thing for them. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
First, we have our other winners bracket semi-final. Riker out of Germany, top of your screen. Mini Mao at the bottom. Mao, as I said before, is placed pretty well in some smaller events. Had some great moments. and of course is looking for this one to be the biggest so far. It can't get much bigger, though, than eliminating Mohamed Light in the first round.
Right, and especially in the fashion that he did. Yes, game number 1, he did make a huge mistake at the end, and it did cost him. But he didn't, he didn't lose composure. He was able to win game number 2 and game number 3 after what just happened to him, and that is the most impressive part of it all. It was so amazing to see someone make that kind of mistake and be able to rebound from that.
Now, you talk about Mao in terms of his history, of course, never played in CRL during the team's moment, but you look at all these events, CRL now being a qualifier-based event, and how difficult qualifying can be. Well, he has experience there. In those and all those different Revel Amar tournaments, the Bren Chong Cup, the CWA Cup, he's qualified for those. He's played his way in 3 times. So really, really good in these qualifier situations. And this so far, maybe one of the biggest ones, although did finish top 4 in the CWA Cup too.
Oh, very impressive. Yeah, I have been very impressed with his gameplay and just his composure overall. And I also like his deck selection. Using this kind of deck, it's way off meta compared to what we're usually seeing with these deck formats. If you're using P.E.K.K.A, it often tends to be, Lightning, Ram Rider, all that kind of stuff. But instead going in with Miner, Goblins, Bandit, he knows what he wants in the dual format, and that's not something we often see from rookies.
Pigs in on the right-hand side with the EQ for the German. Cannon Cart does not quite connect. It's taken off its wheels about a half tile too early. So as we go into double elixir time, lead right now for Reichert, 14-16 in that right-hand lane as Mao does reply.
Yeah, it gets a lot of Baby Dragon damage, which is really nice. And right there, 35 seconds left. Not going to be too worried about the mortar just yet. And obviously, maybe he should have. That's going to be a lot of damage, especially paired with the Earthquake and Royal Hogs. But I love seeing that, he understands the interactions and how he has to play the matchup. He's still looking for damage, and he can still take damage until now. Now he's going to have to really worry about these mortars that get placed.
Poison down on offense. P.E.K.K.A not quite going to get there. And about double the HP right now for Riker as we go into sudden death overtime. He does have the lead here in game 1.
Yeah, maybe he's giving up too much damage right now, and that's obviously incredibly difficult to stop when your opponent is running Royal Hogs EQ. The mortar just overwhelms so many different players, and even though he's playing solid gameplay, solid defense, all that, it's just so tough. Poison is just not quick enough to take out these Musketeers.
Nice placement on the Poison, though, knowing that the Spears were going to walk up into it. You see Riker tip his head there a little bit, maybe acknowledging what happened there with the Spear Goblins. So as we go into the final 90 seconds, pressure now starting to come in for Mao, who playing Miner Control for the 2nd time today.
Yeah, and I really like that push. Again, it comes down to knowing how to play the deck, although this is going to be possibly a problem. This is going to be a ton of damage right here. But I love that he went in with Bandit Goblins, because that's just not something you're going to be expecting. And so you're not going to be able to get the Royal Delivery down in time if you don't have Falcon Cycle.
727 to 199. Things very, very difficult right now for Mao. Has to hold on. Does get the Miner down to the back corner. Valk gets the read wrong. A lot up high on the bridge right now. Poison in. Baby Dragon can't get away from this Musketeer. Delivery down. 199 to now under 350. Ticket away here. Hogs trying to beat out this Miner. Hogs probably will. The EQ comes in. Ewiz trying to hold off. Ewiz does hold off. 25 HP. Poison would win it if he can get around fast enough. Poison trying to take away. Can the EQ get there in time? Riker can't do it. Riker can't do it. 25 HP. Mao wins game number 1. What a performance by the Bolivian.
Unbelievable performance, getting so aggressive at the very end. We don't even see him crack a smile right there. He's focused. He wants this more than anything else. I cannot believe he came back from that deficit with that little time against an Earthquake deck. You don't see that, and I think it comes down to Reichardt using the Royal Hogs. If he goes with the EQ cycle, he's not going to have a problem, and oftentimes that kind of push is going to work. He goes in with a Royal Hogs plus EQ, but his opponent stacked the Goblins at the bridge and also utilized the E was exactly correctly, getting the exact right timing. Didn't get a shot, and that cost him.
You had to imagine he felt like, look what we're seeing here, right? The pigs were sneaking through every single time. You have to imagine he believed he would sneak through in this one. But yeah, just like we see right here, right? The EQ getting the Hogs past the EWIZ, had to imagine all you have to do is do that one more time. But I guess we missed the moment where the EWIZ saves the day. Reichert just cannot believe it here. Blown out of the water by 25 HP.
Yeah, I mean, just so heartbreaking to be able to lose in that fashion. And I mean, just again, can't express it enough. Just so impressed by Mao's composure, especially for, you know, someone who is fresh to the scene with this kind of competition. Just so impressive.
And again, and doing it, not just that, but twice now, he's come out and played Minor Cycle. And Minor Cycle is not super duper popular or super crazy strong right now. He's come out confidently with it twice and getting a big win here in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive to see. Love seeing Minor Poison get played. It's so powerful if you use it correctly, but it is so difficult to not only play it correctly, get a matchup where it's even possible to win, and especially one with Goblins and Bandit. I mean, that is a joy to watch.
Here we go, game number 2. Big possibility here for Mao. A win moves him on to the winner's bracket final, puts him very, very close to winning our monthly championship. All he has to do is get one win out of the next 2. Reichert, though, certainly up to the task and not liking that.
Yeah, Snowball and Fireball already being used, so the spells are not going to be hidden. Reichert possibly, I wonder what's making him be so annoyed already. Usually, usually we see 3 cards and then we see the annoyance. 2 cards, and that's a little bit different.
So a lot of brute spam elements here for the German EWIZ Bandit Magic Archer. Poison is a unique choice in that combination.
Yeah, using the poison and with the bar barrel as well. So usually, you can balance it out. We see the main P.E.K.K.A bridge spam deck that so many players have become famous and well known from. And you can use poison because you have that quick spell if you absolutely need to. You have that zap. Poison paired with bar barrel, it gets difficult to make the right pushes. And right there, especially going against a Zappies deck, it's going to be hard to be able to overwhelm in those.
Mother Witch not going to be super consequential in this matchup. Not many great targets for the Mother Witch to turn into piggies, but still will maybe give another avenue for that poison to be focused on.
And I really want to know the last 2 cards for Mao, because I was thinking that possibly he was looking at like a double hut, but I'm thinking maybe it's like an MK graveyard. There's still a fair amount of options available to him, even with just 2 cards left.
And that one does get a couple of pigs out of it as they go the opposite direction and touch that right-hand tower, 2350. As we are about 20 seconds into double elixir time. Zappy split here, Fireball. Just worried about that Magic Archer here so far, Mal.
Yeah, when you have the Zappies, you don't really need to worry about the Inferno Dragon. He could have tried timing it right, and maybe he should have, because then the Zappies would have been able to help out on the MK, but definitely not a problem. Realizing what he absolutely needs to worry about, especially because he knows I can get back to another MK, and right here, we are going to see it get plopped down. We are going to see Ram Rider be able to escape and get to the tower because of that MK, but not a problem, not too big of a problem, but definitely not what he wants to do again.
Maybe a half step high, knocking that Ram Rider out of the target range to go to that Furnace, so damage does get in. Graveyard comes down now for the first time for Mao, and it's about a 250-point lead for Riker as we go into sudden death.
Yeah, really fun little Fire Spirit jumping onto the Bandit, and only 300 HP separating the 2, but one thing we can look at is both of Reikart's towers are under 1900, so if he thinks that, it's too similar and he's not going to be able to get through, he does have that option available to him to go the opposite lane.
Snowball resets the Inferno Dragon here, and the Bandit as well. Trying to hold the line right now and get a counter push is Mao, and that Mega Knight is very healthy with a pig escaping. Graveyard in with a very healthy Mega Knight who ignores the Ram Rider, goes right to tower. A wow out from Riker. He cannot believe it.
Wow, just one tile too far to the side, I guess. I mean, that is insane for it to just ignore everything. I cannot believe it ends in that fashion.
Ram Rider leaps the bridge, runs away, and Mega Knight goes, okay, if you're not here to play, I'll go to tower. So huge swing. Now Reichert down but not out. Does go to the lower bracket. We'll see that bracket result here in just a moment. But this was just easily controlled by Mao pretty much the entire way through.
Yeah, I mean, just makes a slight miscalculation right there, if you even want to say that. Maybe he was trying to set up the Zappies to get the Inferno Dragon, and it was all part of his plan. But yeah, right there, MK avoiding the Ram Rider. You see the frustration, and I mean, I would be frustrated too, so definitely can't blame them.
Yeah, that's a rough one, but now that's a big leap forward for Mao, and we'll see the bracket here in just a couple of moments. But a clean 2-0 and takes one big step closer. We are still with 6 players. Reichert will fall into the lower bracket, and we'll see his matchup there in just a couple of minutes as well. But very, very nicely played. And yeah, just some moments of frustration, some maybe less than predictable interactions there. And this was game number 1. Reichert coming out with the Royal Hogs deck, and this was just an excellent set of play by Mao.
Yeah, I mean, it just came down to switching up how he does things. Going in, I just love the adjustment that he had. He was giving way too much value to the mortar. So what does he need to do? He needs to put a miner in the back. That way it forces out, a Falcon response or Musketeer in response or something in response. And then he gets very aggressive with the Bandit Goblins. He did that push multiple times because he understood that he didn't have the right answer to it, allowing him to kill off the mortars immediately, killing off the Musketeers after, getting poison value. There was so many things, and that's how you come back from a 500 HP deficit when you're running Minor Poison. Textbook.
Yeah, I mean, just really, and you talk about that change. You're running a minor deck and changing up to a totally different style of pressure. So really smart play, as you mentioned. On to game number 2, very different situation where in this one, it felt like Mao had a much better, a much stronger matchup than he did in game number 1.
Yeah, he had to be careful, but I mean, it came down to no fireball being used, because if you have the fireball not being used, you get to stack. And yes, the poison will be able to overwhelm even if you stack those Zappies on top of the Mother Witch, but you're looking for the Inferno Dragons to be taken out. You're looking for the Mother Witch to get one little spawn, and one spawn can be enough for the Inferno Dragon to lock onto the wrong thing, and your own Mega Knight gets lots of value. I love how he played it. Furnace, when he didn't have poison in cycle, and Furnace to get the poison out of cycle, it wasn't a difficult win for him, but he played it exactly like he needed to.
And we'll take a look, I believe, at the bracket here. Yep, and you'll see Mao moving on to our winners bracket final. So Mao now guaranteed a spot in the top 3. Absolutely huge. That advantage is massive. Of course, to get into the overall final, we'll have a very difficult opponent, no matter who he faces next, Lucas or Samuel Basotto, which will be our matchup in a moment. And Reichert not out, will drop down into the lower bracket where he will face Sato for a chance to continue to fight his way back into contention for this monthly championship. Man, Mao's got to be feeling good. He's been made great deck picks, has made some really good plays. If you're him, how do you even pick your poison there between Lucas and Samuel Basotto?
Yeah, I was laughing because you were chuckling as well. I mean, you just can't care. It's both players are, S-tier players. There are some weaknesses in their game, but it is so few that the difference between them, it's really not massive at all. All you can do is just kind of watch it, enjoy yourself, and understand that you are in a position where they are trying to battle it out to play you. You have all, you don't need to stress about anything. You've done your part.
And of course, you watching right now have been voting to make your prediction for this matchup between Lucas and Samuel. Hashtag Lucas and hashtag Samuel. We'll see those results here, I believe, in just a minute. And in terms of predictions, man, I'm gonna have to go ahead and pick Lucas just because he's on such a flow right now. The way he's been playing this last 6 weeks, I feel like he is in the zone and playing the best Clash Royale we've ever seen him play.
Yeah, my analytical skills are not going to show right now. I'm going to pick Samuel because I think he's due. At the end of the day, like he hasn't had that #1 performance. There's always been something that's going on for him. And I just feel like it can't happen again. Eventually, we have to see one of the most talented players in the world hit that peak, hit that #1. Lucas got it last month. You know, they are buddies, so that could play into it. You know, do I want to take away my friend's chance for that? So I'm going to say Samuel.
Well, you watching at home said Lucas to the tune of about a 2/3 vote. So we'll see if you're right here in just a moment. A phenomenal matchup between Lucas Gamer and Samuel Basotto, two of the best cycle players in the world at one point, maybe one of the top 3, maybe the #1 hog cycle player in the world at one point for Lucas Gamer. Samuel Basotto, one of the top 2 all-time ladder players with his, I believe, 5 #1s on ladder, unless he's added a number 6, a 6th #1 at this point. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I mean, the other part of that is that it wasn't done all just recently. I mean, he was getting #1 finishes 3 years ago, 4 years ago, running Hog Inferno Dragon. I mean, it is the amount of success that he's had for such a long period of time. I'm actually starting to think that my guess for him to win is getting a little bit stronger.
So pretty quick around on both sides here. You see 1-1 and 2 elixir for Samuel Basotto, and on the other side of it, expect to maybe see one more single elixir card potentially from Lucas. Similar looks in both directions.
Yeah, we're probably looking at RG for sure from Basotto. I'm trying to think what this could be on the bottom. I'm thinking maybe like a Loon deck with Giant Skeleton or Mega Knight, or usually, yeah, that's going to be my guess, because usually we don't see Miner paired with Snowball unless it's going to be a Loon deck.
Lead right now for Lucas, 2150 on that right-hand tower as the first minute 15 passes. Royal Giant, as my co-caster called, comes out early, and that Fisherman not in a great spot for the Royal Giant, so Peck has to come out in support.
Yeah, only getting 1 shot right there, the stun from the Fisherman plus the P.E.K.K.A. And he's got 5 elixirs, so if he goes in with a Loon, I'm going to feel pretty good.
Oh boy, Mother Witch and turns and looks at the P.E.K.K.A. instead of at the Balloon here. Mega Minion trying to help, going to try to just stop the bleeding the best that he can, but that's a huge connection for Lucas in the opening 2 minutes.
Yeah, already getting the tower down to sub 1,000, not what he's looking for, but he does have Mega Minion, he does have Mother Witch, he does have a quick cycle. He is not out of it, obviously. And the interesting thing right here is going to see, does he want to go opposite lane? If he tries to do P.E.K.K.A.s in the back, you know, he's obviously going to try and rush. But this is where it gets interesting to see if he wants to try and go RG at the bridge on the opposite lane. Looks like he just wants to defend at this point.
P.E.K.K.A. gets pulled across, nice control with the skeletons, so Mama P.E.K.K.A. will get taken off fairly quickly as Piggies go the opposite direction. Mother Witch in reply now for Lucas, and here we go. Royal Giant down, Firewall comes with the Mother Witch. RG will turn and get 1 shot as the P.E.K.K.A. goes to help out. Gets a 2nd shot here, unbelievable, just like that. Samuel back in the lead.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the problem with P.E.K.K.A. decks. You know, you can have the exact matchup that you're looking for, but if you cycle poorly, if you make just one mistake and your opponent is going to recognize that, it's so easy for these talented players to be able to understand, okay, my opponent only has Snowball. If I do this and this and this, he's going to be forced to respond in this fashion, and then eventually I'm going to overwhelm. And right there, we see it. 552 just needs 2 more shots. I think that's what we're going to get. And GG, Samuel with the win.
And you saw that Fisherman totally ignore the Royal Giant. Did not get it off the tower, and a big win there from Samuel in a situation that looked pretty dire early on.
Yeah, and I love that he decided to not hear me and understand how he has to win the matchup. He just has to get that one push where he has the right thing out of cycle. We saw it happen. No P.E.K.K.A., no Fisherman, placing the troops in like the middle area, so that way if he does Fisherman, it's not going to go to the RG, and instead it's going to go to a different place. And maybe the Miner was a little bit too aggressive. You need to save that elixir. And yeah, just overall, I very impressed that he was able to come back and he didn't panic at all.
That's what I was going to ask you about, was that opening balloon connection push. Look, you love a balloon hit. That's super great. but you saw the miner come in there a little bit extra, and there's so many games where a balloon gets an early hit, but then doesn't do it again. And I'm wondering some of your thoughts here on whether doubling down in that situation might have been a bit too much earlier, if it was the right call either way.
Right. I preach it all the time. You know, it's the main part of this game. It's reset, reset, reset. You get the loon shot, boom, reset. You know, you have the right cards to be able to, you know, spawn on, to just like defend well and to get nice little counter pushes. You cannot use that extra 3 elixir. And I mean, it costs him way too much. The way to win with loon is by just sneak attack, like a sneak attack kind of way to use the deck, and using your loon in that fashion and then minoring after, it's just too much.
So a bit of an over expenditure there from Lucas. Game number 1, cycle decks from both sides, Mother Witch from both sides. One goes loon, one goes Royal Giant. Thoughts on what we might see here in game 2?
I'm gonna guess, let's see, quick cycle from the both of them.
Oh, yeah, really? Crazy. So the not as often seen Musketeer coming out behind the Fire Spirit here for Lucas. And Lava for Samuel.
Ooh, Lava with Cage. No Cage in cycle, so it's... And we see Bars as well. I love this deck choice from Basotto. Even if it doesn't work out, I just love it.
Well, Snowball is the only spell down for Lucas. So I wonder if maybe Fireball didn't have the elixir or didn't have it in cycle, and maybe not playing Fireball at all with the Royal Delivery being played there.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be the Mortar Earthquake deck that when Royal Delivery isn't in cycle, it's very hard to clean up everything. And right there, he had to use the Royal Delivery paired with the Fire Spirits, both 2 phenomenal answers to the Lava Pups. And that's why he was able to get so much damage early on. But this is a nice little counter push that could be the entire tower if he doesn't get these bars placed.
And it looks like Samuel is going to go ahead and sacrifice the tower and hope to play the game in the opposite lane. Flying Machine going to be difficult to deal with as we go on. 90 seconds past.
Yeah, getting the left tower down to just under 1100 and the right tower around 1400. He obviously has lost a tower, so that's not good. But the way he set himself up as the game goes on, he just needs one kind of push where he gets the lava with enough health to get enough damage. And then, you know, I just think that eventually it's probably going to overwhelm, but I mean, we know how talented Lucas is on defense. It's definitely, just because I would have given up a tower or something doesn't mean he will.
Dark Prince to pick up the aggro, and maybe even the miner helping Lucas there a little bit to keep the Dark Prince in range of the Baby Dragon a little bit longer, so not as much damage on tower as maybe Samuel would have hoped. Cycles his Flying Machine in the back one more time, and now has already been shown that Pocket Cannon Cart has to be wary of it as time goes on.
Yep, Pocket Cannon Cart, and it just got a ton of value, and here we go. We finally see the push that he was looking to get. Yes, the tower's down to 1008, but he's going to be able to, gets the mortar placed down in time. I mean, as long as he just plays well, which is something that we see from Lucas every single time, he should have this match.
Miner goes into the back, not picked up. Does get some damage in. Arrows trying to help. Flying Machine can't get away. And that's going to be a GG here. Very nicely played by Lucas in game number 2. Takes advantage, and we are going to game number 3.
Yeah, the poison instead of the earthquake was also very helpful in that match. And then it comes down to tanking damage correctly. He uses the cannon cart on the barbs, and yes, he takes a little bit of damage on the right lane, but then you have that counter push with the cannon cart. Yes, you take the pups, all the damage that they give, but then he gets that actual push that he wants. It was able to get him the tower, and then Lucas is just too talented on defense. He can defend out for the rest of the game.
And you see that cannon cart on barbs as we were talking about, tanking the damage in both lanes, and this sets it up pretty nicely. You see the 1 elixir advantage, but add in the 5 of that cannon cart, gets the Dark Prince in front, and this is a massive swing, and that was the game right there.
Yeah, he just didn't have enough in cycle. The barbs, barbs, the reason why they're not more popular than they are, because yes, we understand that they're one of the greatest defensive cards in the game. but I mean, you just don't cycle well with them. And so it's so easy to get them out of cycle, so easy for you to overwhelm when you don't have the elixir for it. And right there, we saw why so many people don't use that card.
So all tied up here, 1-1. Spells down for Lucas. Snowball and Poison. Log, Fireball, and Arrows all out for Samuel. So thoughts on what we might see here in game number 3?
Well, Samuel does have a lot of things open. So it's going to be interesting to see how he wants to go. Lucas, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Lucas is the one where he's kind of tied down. So I think we could see Samuel try and go one of those soft snipes that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Maybe try and predict, but also put yourself in a position where it doesn't really matter what he goes to. That's the way I would look at it if I'm Samuel.
Very curious. I mean, seeing Lava Hound come out for Samuel, we thought it'd be a fast cycle day. So a bit of a shift. We'll see with all the options that he has open what he's going for here. I mean, obviously Lava, not a big part of his typical arsenal. Barbs as well. So Lucas playing Valkyrie and Valk in the opposite lane.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of bait game number 3 with both of these players playing with the decks that they use. I would have been pretty shocked to see that. And there we go. We see Hog EQ going against Mortar Valk. Interesting little matchup right here.
Little chip damage from the Firecracker on the right-hand side, and Samuel not super happy about that.
Yeah, beautiful Ice Spirit placement, beautiful interaction knowledge from Lucas, but uses the log right there, and that's pretty important. Yes, you're getting, 80 damage, you're trying to get it to a better cycle, but you have to be so careful going against what you should have been able to recognize when you see the Valk and the Mortar. You know it's probably going to be a Royal Hogs deck, so using the log against nothing, even though you know that your opponent has Royal Hogs, he's got to be very careful about that in the future.
Valkyrie gets 3 big swings on the left-hand side, and now dual lane damage for Lucas while he's playing against the dual lane pressure deck on the Royal Hogs. And again, Firecracker getting value.
Yeah, I mean, the Firecracker is just doing anything and everything. He only has what likely is going to be Royal Delivery plus EQ, and so that's the reason why. I mean, every time Lucas has Firecracker in his hand, he should be playing it. There is never going to be a wrong time for him to play that card.
Heading into double elixir time so far, it's been all Lucas all the way here in game number 3. Not an elimination game. Remind you watching at home, loser will drop into the lower bracket and have a chance to keep playing their way back into the upper. But the winner gets a much easier road, guaranteed top 3 finish, and of course, we'll go to the winner's bracket finals against Mao.
Yeah, and I love this pressure from Lucas right here. He gets that he has no response to his Firecracker, and I mean, he's already packed to another one as well. So he just needs to be playing it as often as possible and getting as much pressure as possible. Every time he plays Earthquake on offense, it's, slowing down troops while also getting value on the mortars. I mean, he just has to go on offense. Like, this is exactly what you love in Clash Royale when you're Lucas. Oh, the entire game plan is just get as aggressive as I want. I can do that is going to be the mindset for most players.
Great Fire Spirit behind the Piggies, though, does take out that defense. That's a good chunk of damage on the left-hand side. The most significant damage done so far by Samuel Basotto. And now with the high mortar, going to try to hold off on any more damage from this hog. Will it get a swing? And just barely doesn't.
Yeah, I want to know Lucas's last card because I'm surprised that he's getting this much damage with Royal Hogs, knowing that he's running Tesla. And right there, 2 of the Hogs go to the tower instead of the Tesla. Kind of a misplay from Lucas in a time where he doesn't need to play that exact. He can just play kind of how you're supposed to, where you don't need to worry about placements. You just need to be worried about playing it down in time. And so to have 2 of the Royal Hogs get to the tower is certainly an interesting thing that I didn't expect from him.
So you're saying you're fine with him playing, a tile inside there just to guarantee no damage?
Right, yeah, you don't need to place it exactly on top. You can place the Tesla a little too high. You don't have to worry about the things that you usually have to worry about.
Valkyrie going down, Cannon Cart and Musketeer putting pressure here at the bridge. Second Musketeer down behind this Cannon Cart as the Firecracker's going to work. 2 Firecrackers on the board. This is where they get really annoying. 443 Does the mortar go any place helpful here? And not many options. Valkyrie trying to stop this Hog from hitting 269 remaining as we go to triple elixir.
Yeah, triple elixir, 216. Game's going to be over. Lucas celebrating. I mean, exactly what he needed to do in that matchup. I was surprised to see him not utilize the Tesla more until the very end, but I mean, it comes down to all you need to do is get aggressive with that deck in that specific matchup. And so maybe he was just having too much fun, and so he wanted to get close because he knew, you know, it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, who knows what the moment was there. Either way, very, very well played. And you saw Samuel just kind of frustrated the entire way through. A couple moments of frustration from Samuel. And, you know, I've never thought of him as someone, at least not since 2019, as someone who kind of struggled with nerves or with mentality here. But we saw twice some very visible frustration. You even mentioned that possibility. Thoughts here on what Samuel needs to do to regroup for tomorrow?
Yeah, you know, the thing about him is that I don't think it affects his gameplay when he gets frustrated. I think it affects everything else, though, when it comes to, you know, trying to pick decks and everything. Because, yes, it is the most brutal thing in the world when you go against a deck where you really don't have a shot at the very beginning. No, like two cards into the game, you could see the frustration on his face. But as long as you don't base your deck choices after that, you know, where, oh, you know, if I go against this, I just lose, so I'm not going to use this deck, even though it's one of your best decks in your arsenal. I just need him to be calm, regroup, and then just stick to his game plan.
So your predictions were right. 2/3 of you picked Lucas to win this one, and he wins by 2/3, 2-1. The victory for the Brazilian over his countryman, and Lucas moving on for a chance at a second monthly final championship. Of course, winner's bracket, a certain nice path there. And here was game number 1, and this balloon deck, it really felt like maybe something slipped away here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a two-piece scenario right there where you can't go in with a push that he had, where he had a nice little counter push. He goes in with a loon, gets the loon to connect. You absolutely cannot go in with a miner as well. And the other part of the scenario is Samuel is going to recognize the deck. So he recognizes he only has Snowball. He has Fisherman and Skellies and E-Spirit. So he has all these quick cycle troops where he can get these major advantages by Fishermaning the P.E.K.K.A. low, and then the tower plus the Skellies is going to be able to fully protect it. And so he utilized that correctly. He was able to come back, not a problem, continuing to go same lane, and he was able to get the win.
On into game number 2 here. Lucas with a nice job of battling back in this second one. And yeah, you talked about it, this Lava Miner Barbs deck, a classic combination, did not pay off here.
Yeah, and I think it came down to your opponent has played against that 1,000 times. Your opponent also, the meta is not good for lava decks in this fashion. And so when your opponent realizes, okay, you know, there's a lot of barbs coming down the field, but I'm still going to play my candy cart low so that way I can get the correct counter push. He defends well enough to not take too much damage, and then he gets that counter push. One push only in order to get the entire tower is not what you want when you're using these lava control decks that are supposed to be good for defense.
So Lucas goes Royal Hogs in game number 2 and gets that big win. And then we go to game number 3 and we switch sides here as Samuel Basodo in the third game of the day pulls out the Royal Hogs. We should be getting that deck 3 matchup here in just one moment. There you go. Samuel Basodo switches to the Royal Hogs. And, you know, people talk about Firecracker being annoying, and this is one of those games where you really saw it.
Right. I mean, you just don't have the correct answer. It was poison, not even earthquake. So he could have been playing it. But I mean, you just cycle too fast. You can't do defensive poisons because the Valk plus Hog is going to be able to eat any kind of defensive setup that you have. So you have to try and get these counter pushes where you know it's not going to matter, but you still try and give yourself a chance. And I mean, the frustration was clear from Samuel. He just needs to reset.
Yeah, definitely a tough one, and definitely, you know, an interesting one matchup-wise today. We've had some really interesting calls, a few situations where it seemed like there was a set the trap, bait the trap, spring the trap played by players on all different sides. And One of those players, of course, being Mao, who will be facing off against Lucas Gamer in our winners bracket final. The winner of that will go on to the overall championship. That's going to be a minimum $10,000 game between Mini Mao and Lucas Gamer. Down in the lower bracket, elimination matchups. Another great one. We already saw Mo versus Viper to see loser leaves town. Same thing here for Samuel and Viper. So can he do it twice in a row? The Frenchman wanting to eliminate two of the top players in the world back to back. Going to be a very, very tight one between those two. And then the other lower bracket semifinals, Sato and Reichert going up against each other. Loser will be gone. Winner will move on with another chance to play their way back in. A very difficult path for all four of those players, but certainly up to the task.
Yeah, I cannot wait for tomorrow. Lucas gets to play Mao. You know, I've just been so impressed with his gameplay. He does not look like a rookie. He does not look inexperienced at all. Lucas as well. I mean, we saw him last month. We're seeing him again this month. I cannot wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, Lucas certainly playing some of the best Clash Royale of his career. And that's an interesting thing to look at, right? Lucas, before CRL, was very good, known as a top-tier cycle player. Came into CRL, had some challenges with nerves, ended up finding a place when he switched from head-to-head to 2v2 play, where he ended up being phenomenal for Pain Gaming, and you know, you had some experience with that. And now it feels like he is really hitting his groove. Talk to me about the evolution of Lucas as a player and what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, so he's been playing for 4 years. He took a break. He comes back, and you know, I worked with him. Luis has worked with him, and I mean, he is special. We tell him to run this deck, and then boom, he was like 24 hours later. He says, "Oh, I have 300 games with this. I can pretty much play this perfectly." He just wants it more than anybody else in the world. That's the reason why he's so special, especially this year. Now that he's been able to control nerves, he is in a prime position to not only, you know, get that top 24 spot, maybe get a second monthly win, but also put him in a position where he's the favorite to win the world championship.
Certainly, if you're hitting your groove here in the second half of the season, and that's one of the hard parts. You know, we talk about the grind of being a professional Clash Royale player. These guys have been clicking on all cylinders all year. You're talking about the top four on the leaderboards, or also the top, who are also all here today. How do you build to that peak for December? Because you have some guys, is there the danger of peaking too early with the grind you're putting in?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to balance it. It's really hard to balance everything. You have to use, it's crazy. You know, you have $10,000 on the line, and I'm telling you to try new things, right? But I think you have to use, you know, the last week's performance, not the actual CRL, but you have to, when you're trying to get in with the group stages, you have to be trying new things. You have to understand you can't be doing the same stuff over and over again, because it's going to be way too easy to game plan for that when it's the actual world finals, when it's the finals for these monthly tournaments. So you have to be prepared for that. And that's why we're also seeing Lucas be so talented and do so well, because he's using Expo. No one else in the world is using Expo. He realizes, I need to be trying new things, and I need to set myself up so that not only am I good for this month, but I'm good in the future.
And that's one of those interesting parts, right? That you have to be flexible. And speaking of flexibility, our World Finals, which will be taking place at the end of the year, they are going to be in a different meta, right? We have the quarterly balance changes rather than monthly balance changes. They're going to be a whole different thing, and we're not going to have the same amount of competitive play in terms of dual modes and CRL and stuff like that to prepare for that one. You know, we've seen some players who were great in the first quarter meta, struggled in the second quarter meta, make some comebacks in the third. For that fourth one, you know, what do you think is how can players prepare once we hit October, November, December to get ready for World Finals when there isn't the same competitive ecosystem at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, like, even next month we're going to be seeing drill, and we haven't been seeing drill as of late, and that's obviously shaped the meta a crazy amount. So it's going to come down to, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to spend 10 hours a day? You get that practice partner, you know, Morten, Reichert, Samuel, Lucas, and just grind, work on different scenarios, try and get that, you know, analyst like Julesy or someone else who's really putting in the time and effort to make your life easier, And when everything comes together, that's how you win. But it is hard to put everything together.
Yeah, it can be difficult, but not difficult casting with you, Josh. It's been a whole lot of fun today. We'll be back again tomorrow, but we're going to say goodbye for the end of the day. Thanks for hanging out, and bring back on my good friend Andrew Guy to close out the show on this beautiful Saturday. Andrew Lucas, now in our winners bracket final, Mal with a great performance. It's been a fun one.
I could not agree with you more, man. I think we were trying to get an interview with Lucas, but of course, being virtual, it is very difficult to make sure things are working, especially when we're in different parts of the world. But shout out to him. Great performance today. I hope you and your family are doing well. I know that they're dealing with some health issues right now, and honestly, I'm sure that's on his mind. But what a great day for him. It was just a month ago that he was able to climb to the top, able to get that 20K, and now he does it on the shoulders of taking down his teammate, Chazmac Gaming, other Brazilian, and now he goes to play against Mini Mao, who has been unstoppable. I am dying to see that match tomorrow.
We'll be there tomorrow, and so will you. And of course, you can be here next month. Every single month, CRL is completely open. Top 1,000 players on ladder, qualify for the Swiss bracket, play your way through, win your round robin group, and you could be right here next month, just like our 4 newcomers were here today. And of course, some of those newcomers still here tomorrow.
That's right, Mini Mao, a lot of other players out there, but he is the person that we are all have our eyes on. Him and Lucas going to go head-to-head up there, up top in the winner's side of the bracket. And as you guys saw today, make sure you are covering your bases with those dual format decks. We saw a lot of 100-0 matchups today, and that's something that you do not want to run into tomorrow when you're playing for $20,000.
That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Back here, same time, same place tomorrow. For Josh, Eric, and Andrew, I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you back here mañana for the culmination of our July monthly final.